What is... Dax, are you?
Tracking all our cars on Carvana Value Tracker on all our devices? Yes, Kristen, yes I am.
Well, I've been looking for my phone for...
In Dax's domain, we see all. So we always know what our cars are worth.
All of them?
All of them. Value surge, trucks up 3.9%.
That's a great offer.
I know. Sell?
Sell.
Track your car's value with Carvana Value Tracker today.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We also have a store at Chopped Tees, so if you would like to support us or just own a really cool quality piece of merchandise, please take a look at chop-tees.com/collections/social-suplex-network. Suplex is bad for me today, apparently. Can't say it. I
thought it would be me doing this, by the way.
Oh, yeah, you're used to this now. You're going to do the intros now, and I'm going to do the outros. People will be very confused.
No, I'm not.
Didn't enjoy the intro. It is Monday, nope. January 6, 2025, and we are going to kick off the show with all things New Japan as our foreign correspondent, Trish, who is reporting to us live from Tuesday, also known as Tokyo, Japan, where she has been just gallivanting about the wrestling world this weekend, attending a bazillion shows, meeting lots of people, getting lots of interesting news nuggets. So we are just going to start off with all things New Japan today, including Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. I think we're going to hit Wrestle Kingdom first, which was on Saturday night Japan time, Tokyo time, which was Saturday morning my time. So yes, I was talking to somebody today and they were like, it's been Sunday for months, which I could completely understand from a jet lag perspective. But we're going to kick off with Wrestle Dynasty, which I think got some mixed reviews. It seemed like it was a show that was going really, really well until, unfortunately, we had an injury in the junior heavyweight match between Dookie and Desperado. And that kind of things sort of seemed to come a little bit off the rails after that. Trish, I watched this. You were there live. What did you think of Wrestle Kingdom?
There is an absolute complete difference, I think, from how people viewed this thing online to how people viewed it in the stadium and in Japan. And that's not to mean people didn't spot the issues, but there was nowhere near the absolute kind of breakdowns I witnessed when I got home. So probably one of the biggest things to say about Wrestle Kingdom when you look at different things is that from a production standpoint, from the way they film, from the way they present things, from the big entrances to the graphics to everything like that, they are literally the best in the world. When they get it right, like, it's sensational, and it just looks visually so absolutely stunning, whether you're on the screen, whether you're watching on screen, or whether you're watching kind of in the arena. There's just nothing else like it. And it really kind of emphasized, you know, a lot of these wrestlers, especially. I know a lot of people didn't like the David Finlay entrance, but he looked like a top wrestler probably for the first time I've ever seen it. Hiromu had ridiculous bouncing balls going across the arena. And also, I'm sure he's trolling Naito by continuously wearing this outfit. I came down at Dash yesterday and I was like, there is no reason to be in this giant thing at Dash in like Otto with like under 3,000 people. And he just walks in front of him and I was like, you're doing this on purpose now. But yeah, no, the big entrances, that sort of thing. It just made everything feel important. Everything had like a VR beforehand. And it just felt like not just like a spectacle, like in the WWE sense, but like just like everything really did matter. And whether the results kind of ended up as they wanted them or not, it's like you can't present your people better than that from your side. You can't control what happens in that ring. That's for them to control. But every other element from Wrestle Kingdom, we'll talk about Dynasty in a minute, they did that completely perfectly. And it was just like a really stunning show to attend. Didn't feel too long this year, other than we'll talk about the main. But in general, like the overall length of the show did not feel too long at all. When it came to kind of the show itself, so I know there's been lots of comments about the attendance. So the office in New Japan expected about 25k a few months ago, and they got to 24,107. So yep, we're about 3.5 down on last year. But I do think it's important to notice that it is 2 days, so you will get people choosing between the two, especially with the return of Kenny Omega.
Yep.
But this was a Saturday, and the 4th is their traditional day. So do you know what I always say? Like, it's like a TV show and not a sports team.
Yes.
Well, in Japan, it's a sports team.
Yes.
So very much it was explained to me the other day that it is very much a sports team. So you only go to one promotion. So whether you watch DDT or you watch, Noah or whoever it is, New Japan, that is your promotion. You treat it like a sports team. And then the big occasions are the big occasions. So if you go to New Japan, it's the 4th. And you will book your Shinkansen back or anything like that for the 5th. So this is the day. So is it disappointing number? Yeah. But at the same time, for me, there was a key theme in this show. And you might not feel it with all the kind of commentary and the way people have been talking about it. But I thought this was very much a show that, in terms of the position that they put people in and some of the victories they got, it was about elevation and it was about recognition of people that have worked hard and fan service. So maybe not for people coming in that doesn't, who come in for Wrestle Kingdom once a year, maybe come in for Dominion. But in terms of the people that were elevated, you had Goto win the Rambo.
Yep.
Who has put in amazing work for the last year. And then, very popular amongst the crowd. You had, David Finlay in a key spot putting over Yota Tsuji, which was my match of the night. Well,
it was very good.
I think it had a lower ceiling potentially going in than Takeshita and Shingo.
Yes.
But came out with more. So and the build to the end of that match was just fantastic. They got everything spot on it, just built perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had to follow the injury to Dookie. So they had to get that crowd back into invested after, a horrific injury and then pick that back up. So I think they did a great job. What you want to think about, Hiromu, that we'll talk about more of that in a minute, but that was a huge spot for him to be in. Dookie in itself, Dookie, no one would have expected him to be on a Wrestle Kingdom card in that spot, going in as champion. Had a huge entrance as well. That was a huge moment. The main event, whether you like it or not, this is the first time in 15 years that the main event didn't include the names Tanahashi, Naito, or Okada. And that's a huge movement. And it just felt like, and I felt this, it's the same with Dynasty with like Gay Kid as well, but I felt like there was a real effort to do this. And whether that costs you in terms of, your ticket buying, that you didn't stick a big name at the top or you didn't put, if Kenny had been on this show with Gay, but there hadn't been a night 2, then I'm sure it would have done over 27k that they did last year.
Yes.
So you make people choose. So you have to think about that. It's slightly under what they were. But I think the risk was worth the gain in terms of who they were elevating and how they got there. And I would rather see a company do that than bring in, 10 names from the past to shore up that thing there. And it's interesting. So somebody said to me, they gave me a description of New Japan for Wrestle Kingdom. And we always think about these big shows, these stadium shows, and we talk about them being like a culmination of like a year.
Yep.
And they said to me, so rather than seeing it like that way, like it's a sample. It's a sample of New Japan. So you get a match like Takeshita and Shingo, and you may go in with like sky high expectations, and then it may be slightly short, but then the match that you really want to see might be 4 months later at like Sakura Genesis, and you'll get that match. So it's like an advert. Did you feel that way watching it? Did you feel like you were sampling what you could see in New Japan for the rest of the year?
I don't know that I would have come up with that by myself, but I think you suggesting it does make a lot of sense. That it in some ways is a culmination of programs, but it's also kind of like, here's people we're going to focus on. Like you said, it's rewarding certain people, but also kind of playing off. So I think that's a pretty decent way of describing it. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start at the top. So I know we don't do match reviews, but I think we need to discuss Sak and Shota. My opinion going in and what I've heard is that this was definitely not the original plan. Shota had a really strange build. He was, doing nothing in the G1, walking around with his paper belts. They're playing into, is he being booed or is he not? He had the thing with gay kids that no one's supposed to talk about now, and they had a meeting to tell them that. And but so it's been a very strange year. It's not the way that you would build a challenger for the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. So we got some detail on what they kind of thought they were doing in that match in terms of what they were trying to convey. So for you, how did you feel about this, about Shota, seeing it from kind of more of the outside perspective and the main as a whole?
So I thought it was, and I'm just going to be as blunt as possible here, right? I thought it was a mess. And I thought it was a mess from a storytelling perspective rather than from like a moves execution standpoint. I thought both guys looked good. They were good moves. They executed them well. For the most part, Shota's arms and stomps were terrible. But they're good wrestlers, right? And I like Zack Sabre Jr. I don't really have an opinion on Shota. I was really interested going into this match because it felt like something was going to happen, right? That like Shota had reached kind of a point where like a change was going to come. What he was doing wasn't working, and even me as a very, very casual New Japan viewer, like is aware of that, right? I'm like, well, something's not working. There's going to be some change here, right? There's going to be a story told about his journey. And I didn't feel like they told a story about his journey at all. I felt like there was 3 different matches that they tried to put together. There's sort of like a weird semi-heel turn part of the way through. He shoves his father. He's like trying to attack Zach. But then at the end, he didn't, and he was still a face. And then they have the, respect handshake. And I'm like, what the fuck happened here? Like nothing. If this was a match where it was like Shota Umino is going to tell you who he is, I was like, I left more confused than when I got in there, right? Like I just didn't understand, what was going on. So that's kind of was my overall thought of it. I would say it was not a good match, but it had more to do with the story they were trying to tell and the match layout than it did with like the execution of moves or anything else like that.
All right, so when they were going in, they often do like the interviews and stuff, and they're kind of prefacing what they're going to do in the match. Right. So I know we've talked about this with like the Naito Hiromu stuff when I've written out, but with this one, so Zach did a number of interviews running up where he was talking about the same things that we talk about. Same thing we talked about with Andy Kilden is, Shota not being able to find his identity.
Yep.
And 1 minute he's, babyface Tanahashi. The next minute he's trying to be John Moxley. And that is the story that they were trying to tell. So the idea was that he tries to be Tanahashi, up to the submission spot, the long submission spot, which if they'd ended that match there after that long submission spot, he was getting cheered, right? That maybe would have been much, much smarter. No one would have had an issue with it in terms of time length or anything like that. But that going forward maybe might have been a much, much better way of doing this, but they didn't. So the idea was, right, he tries to be Tanahashi. He fails. He tries to be John Moxley and he turns on his father and, and he's stomping and he's stomping and he's stomping. And that fails. He keeps trying to do all these things, but he's not himself. He doesn't still know who Shota Umino is, and that's what cost him the match. That is what they tried to do. I know that in the building, it did not come off as that whatsoever.
No, it didn't come off that way to me watching it. It makes sense now that you're saying that. I'm like, oh. Yeah. But it did not come across like that. It came across like a meta version of that where they just he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, you're right on the you mentioned the like the forearm. So there's a real good comparison on these two shows. So there's a spot on Wrestle Dynasty in the Kenny Omega Gay Kid patch where Kenny he's trying to climb a turnbuckle.
Yep.
Slumps. And you feel it. And because of the way that Kenny sells, it's like, it doesn't look like comedic or anything in any way. You just feel that exhaustion, right? You feel like his body fighting him. With this, it was just like, and the Japanese, as respectful they are, will just laugh at you at times if they think it's stupid. And the place just laughed. And I felt like that was the biggest summary. It was they just went, yeah, that's hilarious. Like, what are you doing? You look like a complete idiot. And so that's kind of where I thought work-wise he let himself down a little bit. the big entrance. I'm going to say something on the stupid bike, okay? Because everyone's talking about the bike. Big cars and bikes are not a normal thing here.
No.
You'll get these little square cars that have like a really kind of strange shape because they fit underneath like the garage underneath the houses. So I have no issue with the stupid bike, okay? The bike is big because that's rare here. So the big entrance, and to be fair, it looked cool. Like he goes all the way around and it was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But there was no issue with that. The length of the match, so I can tell you that the length of the match was not determined by Dookie's injury. So I know there's been a lot of people suggesting that.
I don't understand that at all to me. Like, that was one of those things where I was like, why on earth would that have anything to do with Dookie's injury? Like, to me, it seems like those things are laid out enough that I don't know. That was one that I was like, I doubt that. So it's good to know that that's the case.
So one of the suggestions about that people were saying about was that this show is on live TV in Japan.
Oh, okay.
So it's on TBS Arse. So they show it as just like a live special as well as on World. So there was a suggestion that does that have an influence, but it doesn't. They were given as much time as you want. You decide how much time you are taking. So this was a wrestler-led decision. It wasn't like the office saying, oh, you need to do 45 minutes. They were told you've got carte blanche. You basically decide exactly how long you want to go. They both felt, this is what I've heard from someone, from a source that is completely aware of these conversations. They both felt that they could have shaved some minutes off. But the office was in general. So I know that there's the meme, right, of the Tanahashi face at the end of that match. He's just, he looked like me when I was going through that turbulence. But I am told that, Gato, the office, was pretty happy with it and basically told them, get your head in the game, let's go back for Dynasty tomorrow. So some of the kind of conceptions around this are not really there. Did I think it did much for Shota coming out of it? No. And I think you could hear that at Dash and you could hear it at Dynasty, where I didn't even realize their match. So we went out for like just to come back. We didn't realize the match just started because it was so quiet. Yeah. And this is the thing about Tokyo Dome crowds. This is not a Budokan crowd or a Ryogoku crowd. There's no they are not just going to react to everything. They're not just going to be invested. You have to fight for this crowd. This is a huge crowd. You've got the echo of the stadium and you have to fight for it. And I just don't think it ever got there. And you could tell that. But then, when you go into Otta yesterday and there's 3,000 people and a lot of them are your hardcores and he gets barely any reaction. There was one move he did, and I can't remember who it followed, but it was literally the move before got a huge reaction, and then he did something, and there was a pin drop, complete silence, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, he's fucked.
It's not good. I felt bad for him. It's tough to watch somebody who's good at wrestling do a bad job at it, I guess, and it was kind of difficult to see him and Zach be I don't know. Even if they were on the same page, they didn't necessarily look like they were on the same page. And I think that it was not a fun match to watch.
Yeah. And it felt you only go to a film and it doesn't finish. So I was thinking Dunkirk, Australia is a good example. And you're there's a Kingsman film and the Rasputin one's the same thing. So you watch the first bit and you think, right, we're at the end now. And that was what it was with the submission spot, the long submission spot. Okay, we're at the end. And then 15 minutes later, you're right, we're at the end now. And then it carries on and you're is this ever going to end? We're going to stay in Tokyo Dome all night, train finish at 11:30. And I think it's a long show as well. So you become more checked out live. And a lot of us have been to NJPW in the morning. Yep. So it's a long day and it feels it. And that's when we kind of start to. So I don't know if our reaction to it is because we're not as emotional about it when you're in there. It's the fact that you're just kind of at the end of a show and you just think you're tired. But I didn't find it offensive. So I've seen loads of kind of things where it was oh, it was the worst match I've ever seen. And it's there was people that were here for Jay White and Okada a few years ago, which was not panned in the same way, that said it was complete silence in the entire dome and it was just dire. And this was nowhere close to that. And it didn't feel like a bad match in that sense for us. It felt like just a passable one where they tried to do too much and it went 10 minutes too long. So it's a strange kind of kind of difference to that. But yeah, it's interesting. So Zach is a lead in these big events. I don't know. I think they see him as this was a bit of recognition. I think this was recognition for the work that he's put in. Do I think they see him as this huge long-term investment? I'm not sure. But they can see him as that stopgap, and you kind of do that. He's very popular in New Japan. He's very popular with the office. So that, but I don't know. It was a strange to see someone in that style and in that spot as being the lead guy in the main event. But yeah, it was interesting. It was one of them real contradictions of like whiplash of you come back in and we're just like, just okay. And you come back and you're like, holy shit, like why is the world burning?
I think some of it is this expectation that at some point Shota's going to break out, right? And like be good. And I think there was, my feeling is that a lot of people thought, okay, he's going to break out here. Like this is his big moment. This is his chance to shine. He's going to show what he's capable of. And it just didn't happen. And like you said, I didn't think it was a bad match per se. Like I've sat through way worse matches than that. But I didn't think it was good either. So I think in that regard, it's kind of like, oh boy, this is your big moment and this is what you came up with, and yikes. So I think it was a lot of that frustration boiling over.
Maybe you could look at it like that, that he got his shot the same way, and you can look at the way that Suji took his shot.
Yep.
Finley, who also hasn't, Finley's probably the most improved wrestler in the last year. I know when it comes to like the observer voting, everyone's going to go Carl Fletcher. But when I think of like becoming a difference maker and presentation and everything, and then the improvement in his match standards, because Fletcher's always been that good, but the improvement of Finley is, I think that's sensational. And he was, he's your kind of undercard MVP for the weekend between the two matches across the 2 days. So yeah, Yota took his shot and put on his best performance on that stage. And I don't think we got that from Shota. I don't. So that would make sense. And where he goes from here is difficult. They're going to have to figure that out. I don't think you can rush him back to the main event next year. I don't think you need to, especially with Tanahashi's retirement. So that will carry next year completely. So, yeah, I don't know. They'll have to figure it out. It didn't look from Dash like he's not going to sit on top of the card for the next few months. But, yeah, it's a difficult one. But I think it's hard because you had this middle stretch in the card. So you had Takeshita and Shingo.
Yep.
Which I think there was huge expectations on, probably too high expectation on.
Yeah.
I think struggled in a way because they're too similar. So you've got these two guys, I know obviously Takeshita's bigger, but they work in similar ways. So it's all about the change of speeds, the explosivity. And it's really difficult to do that when there's two of the same. When you do get that, and Kenny's very good at being able to do this with people similar, then it's fantastic. But every now and again, it's like, it doesn't quite get there. And Shingo is, he's aging now. We have this thing in New Japan where he's aging. And like everyone else, like Naito, like Tanahashi, and you have to accommodate for that as well, where you have to think, so when you put these huge, huge expectations on, it's really difficult to kind of do that. But you had that match, and that was still a great match. Then you have Duki and Desperado, which should be, on paper is a fantastic match. They had a match back in June that was awesome. And I think what happened there was, so you had the injury, which was horrendous injury after a huge entrance. And it looked like they hadn't planned to go to the barrier. Like they were supposed to be more central, because he pauses at the top. And it's like he realizes he's going to land straight on the barrier. So he corrects himself. And then by correcting himself, he realizes that he needs to protect himself. And then once he puts the arm down, that's where he does the arm. Yep. That's what it felt like in real time. But that kind of took the flow out of the show. And then you get it back a little bit. You have the Finley and Suji match. But if you had those three matches in the middle and they were all great, I don't think people would feel as emotional about the last two than what they did. It doesn't help. So you did the second to main, which was Hiromu and Naito, and that was the ticket selling match. Yes. So when you look at the ticket movement from post World Tag League, you could see that kicking in. You could see in the crowd when they went through all the VRs and stuff that it's like, this is the match. This is the match that people were going to see. But it's also a really strange kind of feeling because Hiromu is still a junior, and juniors are still seen as lesser in Japan.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter like that. So you've got this guy now that you cannot have him be the aggressor in this match. He cannot be the guy controlling this match. But Naito is not physically in the position to control the match, and the crowd want to cheer Naito. It's Naito and Dome. They want to cheer him. So you ended up with this like weird tension at the very start, where it was like everybody was watching. There wasn't a person moving, but they didn't know what to do. And I think you can get that a little bit in face versus face matches. And then you have Naito having to be the antagonist as the teacher, the sensei, and stopping, Hiromu getting him a momentum, being smarter than him. But it didn't fit what the crowd really wanted. And I think they struggled with that a little bit. And then, you get to the end, you've got his physical capabilities. I want to say Hiromu, the amount of work Hiromu put into that match in terms of like physically trying to carry Naito was really like remarkable. You could just see it from it. You're just like, Jesus Christ, like the amount of what you're doing here. But the way they tried to tell the story of the match was like, he can't, as he's like the student and he has to come up. And by the time he actually gets to a point where he could defeat him, he then saves him from the Stardust Press. So for anyone that doesn't know, Naito doesn't move to the Stardust Press. He's done it in big matches and it's generally cost him. Yeah, he did hit it in 2020 when he won the belt from Okada. But it was like, he goes up to the top and most of the time he misses it. So he wants to save him from that. So he grabs hold of the leg. This is your cinema thing if you're into that. And Hiromu cost himself the match because he still cares about Naito as much. And you can tell that afterwards when Naito is in absolute tears, which is weird because he doesn't express emotion ever. But I think with that one, it was disappointing. You saw the limitations for Naito, but emotionally at the end, they do the pistol up at the end, and it was still probably like one of the most loudest pops of the night. So it was a really strange kind of mix. What did you think of that one?
I thought the end and the emotion at the end saved the match for me, and that I was invested in that. I thought it was at times difficult to watch. And Naito's physical condition at times is difficult to watch. It's hard to see him out there. He looks like he's in pain. He looks like he's having a hard time. To some degree, he almost looks like he's having a harder time than Tanahashi does. So it was tough. And it was also tough because I think, especially at the end with him crying, it felt like he almost understood that there was a match he wanted to have that he had envisioned for a long time having with Hiromu, and he wasn't physically able to have it. And I think it felt like it broke his heart a little bit, to be honest with you. I'm getting a little choked up about it, but it felt like I felt like his heart was broken because he couldn't have that match. He couldn't do that for his student, right? And that was tough.
Yeah.
But that emotion alone saved the match for me because I was invested in that. I was like, oh my God, look at this poor guy. Like, I care about this. And that helped a lot. I think if you had stopped the match earlier, if I had not watched the ending, I probably would have been like, I don't know about this. I also cracked up at the fact that it took both of them a collective 45 minutes to get to the fucking ring. I was literally sitting there being like, Jesus Christ, the match was shorter than the fucking entrances. Roman Reigns needs to take a fucking lesson.
Yeah, Roman Reigns has nothing on Tetsuya Naito.
No,
nothing.
no.
Off walking to the ring.
Oh my God.
And then the suit comes off and he had the black bottle suit. But Hiromu was like, this is always his game, right? Because it's just like, he's a normal kawaii culture and it's like, what is he going to wear? How ridiculous is it going to be? And he came out in that and then the smile on his face and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
It was extremely cute. And from a production standpoint, I was a little frustrated because every time you saw it from a distance with the screens in the background and the balls going everywhere, it looked really cool, but they kept doing close-ups. And I was like, it looks stupider with the close-ups because it's just his hands holding onto his head. Like, fucking back up, dudes. But yeah, that was one where I was just like, I want a wide shot. Give me a wide shot.
The wide it would have been awesome because like the ball's going around like the entire floor and then the screens are fantastic. They have new screens at the Tokyo Dome now. So what you see at the very top of Wrestle Kingdom is literally like their new screens for the baseball team. And it just looked phenomenal. And it was like seeing him get that kind of moment. And I think when the finish came at first, I was kind of like dead disappointing because you're like, I wanted Hiromu to go. But I realized very quickly that there's going to be a second match. Yeah. So when they did the talk in the build up, and they did some fantastic build up, like little interviews going over their history, you could tell like how much it meant to them. But Hiromu's like, oh no, it's going to be one and done. And Naito's like, we'll see, our relationship's going to change. I don't know. And I think they played onto that. So it's going to be Hiromu that needs that match now. He will need to prove himself. And I think when you do the tag run, because you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out where that one's going. When you do the tag run, you can elevate Hiromu up to that. You want him to be more of a heavyweight. Yeah. Then when you do that second match, it's kind of going to be like, he wants to prove himself so much, he's going to be the antagonist. You know, I could even envision like this being like Naito retirement match, sort of thing, that he has to, and I don't think Naito's going to go on a year tour like Tanahashi. I don't do it. But it's like, he's not. He's just going to be like, yeah, here you go, here's a match.
The 17 retirements of Bryan Danielson, we won't have that either.
I thought you were going to go about 17 title one with John Cena, but it's all the same fucking thing.
It's all the same fucking thing. No, that makes sense. I think from my perspective, it was probably one of the things I was missing from the match layout was expecting Hiromu to be more of the antagonist and wishing that was happening. So that was kind of one of those things that I feel like if they do a rematch and they're able to do that, that'll, I think, make it a lot more interesting to me anyway. And I'm the most important person here, so.
You absolutely are. But no, I actually think it would work. So I think that, you know, they're always going to cheer Naito over him. They love Hiromu, but Naito is Naito. So if you have Hiromu being more of the antagonist and you play off like this could be the last thing, I think it'll work so much better. You know, Hiromu, it's just because we talk about Hiromu's age. Hiromu's 37 now. Talk about his physical, you know, ability of everything that's gone on since, you know, he broke his neck. And it's one of those things where I'm bullish on it because when he has the matches where he's the underdog, where it's someone like where they want to cheer him, whether it's been the match he had with Evil back in 2020 or when he challenged Sonada last year or this year with Hanare, there's enough. He can work in that role, but he has to do the other stuff as well. But I like the opportunity of him working with the tag division with Naito. And the thing about this is, this has also got lost in kind of the ether. Yes, they have been too slow. Yes, they have missed whole generations of people. You know, there was the generation before this kind of class with Shota and Tsuji with Master Watto and that sort of thing, where they just haven't converted people. And we missed the bar with Ibushi, and we missed the bar with Shingo, and we were stop-start with Ospreay. You can probably go down the card and pick things out. And Jay White was, you know, brought back but never kind of presented as anything. He was treated as secondary on when he had the World Championship. But they have recognized that they have to move on now. Yeah. So you put Naito in the tag division. You have him being able to draw houses with that. You can use that. And this is what they did with Adachi in June. So you had the juniors on top, and then you had the LIJ tag underneath with the first time that Hiromu and Naito have been in the same ring together in that tag. So they use it that is the way to use him now. Yes. He is not going to be physically on top. He cannot do 25-minute main events, you know, at the Tokyo Dome every year. You have to move on. You have to take these risks, and to do that and put him in the tag division is the right call. And it's the same with Tanahashi. Yeah, Tanahashi and Evil, whether you like this or not, was good. Okay. Yeah. It was good. They had incredible. The Evil entrance was just that was amazing. Yeah. But the way they did that was they used Tanahashi. You know, they're running the story it's said last year, and they made him like, you know, comfortable. And it was like, we're protecting him. But the match didn't feel like it suffered. It didn't feel like it was slow or you're watching somebody that age. You know, you use all the tricks. You use all the how to talk to them. This is one of them things where all the how to talk to stuff worked. It worked perfectly. And they got a decent result out of it. It actually felt like people were invested in it. And it's like, rather than, you remember like when we watched MJF and Tanahashi's legs were like, and it was just painful to watch. Yeah. But with this, it was like, yes, that works. That was great. And so they know that they have to protect Tanahashi. They know they have to protect Tetsuya Naito. They know that they need them for drawing for the next year. So I think they did everything. There's that recognition that I don't think there has been in recent years. And, you know, last year, they ran Naito into the ground. They absolutely ran him into the ground. They needed to. Yeah, he kept their figures up. So they were up year on year on tickets overall. If you don't put that on the back of Tetsuya Naito, like for the last year, I think you're insane. Whether physically, whatever, that guy kept that company on that level. You take him out the main event this year and put him in the secondary role, and it's not as strong, but they need to do it, and they've recognized it. And he'll be fun in the tags, you know. Poor Hiromu was like, Hiromu last night, I was like, mate, you better be doing your cardio because you are fuck, you are going to be wrestling like 20 minutes by yourself.
He was bumping his ass off in that match. Dude, before we move on to Wrestle Kingdom, or Wrestle Dynasty, I should say, do you have anything else you want to talk about with regard to Wrestle Kingdom itself, or you just want to head on to Sunday?
I thought the Izumi Mairo Atani match was very good. They were a great sprint. The crowd were very into that, which was good because I know there's been kind of quiet on that. We'll talk about Takeshita with Dynasty because I think we can do that more. But I think it is worth a note, and now we have that he signed with New Japan. We'll definitely talk about it in a second. But he was the only guy from outside on that card. So there was no bringing in a John Moxley. There was no, although there was rumors that was a main event for Wrestle Kingdom at one point. There was no bringing in a Bryan Danielson. There was no bringing in a Kenny Omega for that card. So this felt like this was a New Japan card.
Yes.
You know, they really did go, this is our guys, for whatever reason, whether you want to want money, whatever, but this is our guys, this is our company. And I would rather see that any time than relying on bringing somebody in from another country or anything like that and putting them above your people. And it's like the opposite feeling to what we felt coming out of All In, where it was like, you know, this guy at the top, it's been the same guy, and now we're putting that guy back. The feeling of freshness. Yeah. I do think there was a distinct feeling of freshness for this show. And maybe not everything came off, but you take the risk. So, you know, even the Zack and Shota thing, plenty of criticism for the way they built Shota, but, you know, although the preview texts were very good, but you take the risks, and I think long term that's going to be much more healthy for them than, oh, we'll get a Okada back or we'll get Moxley. You know, I just think that was my feeling on that. So.
Well, I think that's a thing you can learn from, you know, it's like you said, they waited too long on some guys. They didn't put people in opportunity places where they needed to. And now they're like, well, we got to fucking do it. Right. So let's be patient. Let's take the time. Let's trust the people we've got and not look somewhere else for, you know, a quick fix. And I think, you know, from that perspective, you kind of want to see that in a promotion, even if you don't Absolutely. Have the growth or the business that you want to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was very much kind of in favor of that. Let's talk about Dynasty, because this was a fun show. This was Forbidden Door 1, like sneaky good on paper, and ended up feeling that way as well.
It was a fun fucking show. It was just an enjoyable show. And Kenny Omega was like, Jesus Christ, that was almost a religious experience. I swear to God. Like that was, and my time zones were all fucked up. So I woke up, saw a lot of the reaction, and then was like, well, the match isn't going to live up to the way that people are talking about it. And it did. It was better. I was like, Jesus Christ. God, I miss that fucking guy. Like, God, we missed him. Like, just everything about it. And not just the match, like the post show, the promo afterwards, like multiple promos he did afterwards were absolutely fucking incredible. And just like, there's nobody better. I'm sorry. There's nobody better. I don't want to hear anything about fucking anybody else. It's fucking Kenny Omega. He's the greatest wrestler of all time. Like, shut the fuck up.
Well, we did our thing on Kenny Omega when he came back at Power Struggle, right?
Yes. Yes, and it was funny to see that get retweeted on fucking Sunday, wasn't it? I was like, what happened to my note? Oh, that's why.
But there is no one like Kenny Omega. We did that because you don't feel like this with anybody else. Not Bryan Danielson, not Will Ospreay, not whoever. I don't give a fuck who you think it is. There is nobody. And when I talk about that feeling that we chase, the reason like I went up and do like with you in Toronto, like that's the feeling you chase, that energy where you come out and like you're just electric. You feel electric. Like the boys that like was with us, we were just that evening. We just had so much energy, like positive energy. I know that everyone thinks, oh, everyone went online just to, but no, we went. I'll tell you what we did actually. We went on the roller coaster, the Thunder Dolphin, which is insane. Oh, it's so fucking brilliant, right? And we just go around the whole thing going. Because it was just like that energy, that thing with that, and that and there was such high expectation.
There's so much high expectations, and he surpassed them. Yeah, like this guy has been out for what 13 months. Yeah, 13 months, and he doesn't come back and have a warm up. He doesn't come back and wrestle like Adam Cole. It's like he comes back and he's better than he was before. Yeah, the elevation that he got on a couple of dives was insane. And the speed and his normal change-ups and his structuring. Yeah, they did so much clever stuff. Oh, my God. He did a dive into the corner on Kid, and
Yes.
I swear to God, he launched himself from like 2/3 of the ring away. I was like, how the fuck did he get all the way over there with just like his explosiveness? Honest to God, Trish, I think he looked better than when he came back in 2022. Like
He did. Yeah.
He looks.
And that
he
Osprey
looks,
match at the Dome was like one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, and yet this felt more to me. I don't.
He just looked absolutely fucking incredible. He looked crisp. He looked strong. He looked like he felt good, right? Like, I think there were times, there were times at some of the ends, like, the Hangman match when he lost to Hangman, some of the end before he went out with the diverticulitis, you looked at him and you thought, this man doesn't feel good, right? There was none of that. He looked like he felt like a fucking $1 million and he was coming to kill you. And I am here for it.
He felt like a god because he is a god.
Yeah.
And you could tell like he was fully invested. He was fully invested in the character. All the work that he did with Gabe in the run up, the stuff at the press conference, the promos. Kenny Omega is a bad promo. How many times have I heard that?
Fucking shut up about that.
If that's a fucking bad promo, then the rest of the world is fucked.
My favorite. It was so stupid, but the part where Kid starts and Kenny just goes, "Go ahead, Greg." I was like.
But no, the structure, the way they built it, so they wanted Gabe to be the babyface.
Yes.
So Gabe Kidd, who has gotten over pretty naturally this year, by the end of the G1 was over as a babyface. And looking at what they did at Dash last night, that's going to play in. Finlay looked like he was very much jealous of the reaction Gabe was getting when in exchange, especially with Suji. So it's like they're going to play on that this year. That's going to be the story of this year. But it was like, they wanted him to be the babyface, and you're doing this with Kenny Omega, who's just come back after 13 months, and he tells the crowd, I want you to boo me. And because they care so much about Kenny, it wasn't like, oh, they're disrespectful. No, or they just went, okay, this is our role, let's do it. And it was sensational to see that manipulation of the crowd. There is not many people who can do that. There's not that many people that can change a crowd like that and get them to do exactly what they want. And the way that thing was structured, even like little things. So like when he does the dive to the outside that takes out like Bryce Remsworth, and then that gives them so much time then to do other things because you don't have to worry about the 20 count. And it's like that sort of thing. It's only a little, but it's so clever. So there's never like this kind of thing of like, well, that's fucking stupid. And he gave Gabe so much. And Gabe was great, right? This whole thing that Gabe is not a good wrestler, you can fuck off. I've had enough of this. This has been going on for a while. I've watched this kid since he was like real young, when he was coming through in Nottinghamshire, and like when he was at Hope, and when he was like Joseph Connor's boy. And it's like, he's a great wrestler. Yes, the shouting, the screaming, he needs to turn back at that. In fact, when he's more sinister, I think he's even better. But he's a babyface. This guy can be a really good babyface. He's had a great year. He's a great wrestler. And if you've underestimated him, or you take piss out of his photos and you're like, why is Kenny coming back to, why has Kenny Omega chosen, because that's what's happened here, why has he chosen Gabe Kidd? Well, now you fucking know. Because that guy stepped up. That guy stepped up in a way that if that had been an Osprey or a Takeshi, you'd be raving about him for like the next week. You'd be talking about him as like, the next big star in wrestling. But because, there's this thing and this cliche, this is in some way was Shota, there's an expectation, there's like a precursor going in. And he shut you all the fuck up. He was fantastic. He did everything like that. They got the psychology right. And you just saw everything that he can be. But Kenny Omega gave you that. He can make somebody in one night. We talk about making someone in one night. He can do that. Nobody else can. And he's now got, and now he's set with this character. He's playing off this wall. In fact, in a really funny way, he's doing John Moxley's gimmick, but way better than fucking John Moxley.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And that should show you that. But yeah, I think he was right that it was Gabe. I think he was right that he needed to be in New Japan. Yeah. People say, many people say, AEW can't like give him a Tokyo Dome. Well, AEW can give him similar, right? This was 16K. Okay, you can get, it's only a few less thousand than that at Revolution. What you're telling me is AEW aren't willing to make him feel that special. And that's the thing they have to try and correct this year. And whether you can do that when you've got John Moxley running around, doing US House of Culture stuff, and that being the predominant line, or when they want to feature this person, or they want to feature Copeland, or they want to feature whoever, the restrictions, everything like that. I don't know. They brought Adam Copeland back on top of this guy. Adam Copeland goes to NXT, does a .16, and he's rescuing out of his WrestleMania main event by Bryan Danielson. And I'm not being nasty. I think Copeland is a great worker. He's not Kenny Omega. You brought back, and don't tell me that this wasn't the case, because it was. The last thing is the most important thing on the show. You did exactly the same thing that you did with Hangman and MJF, where you did the Hangman return and then the MJF turn, right? You told the audience that Adam Copeland was more important to you than Kenny Omega. Are you fucking insane? What is wrong with you? Like, I don't care if you work in silos. I don't care if you try and deliver all these things like with Max. I get it. But you didn't have to fucking do that. This is the guy. He's still the guy. And like, we said it a while ago and people go, oh, no, he's still the fucking guy. Because nobody else can do this. Nobody.
My frustration level with, I think, some of the, you say, we say Kenny isn't presented in AEW the way he is in New Japan. Well, they didn't have a Tokyo Dome to do this. They couldn't return him at a Tokyo Dome. It's excuse after excuse after excuse. You say, well, they chose to present Copeland over Kenny. Well, they had to because the main event was the final thing of the show. Again, these are choices that AEW makes, that Tony Khan makes. These are not forced things that they have to do. Okay? And that's fine. These are the choices that Tony Khan makes. I can look at him and think he's fucking insane because I'm sorry. There are wrestlers that are good. There are Adam Copelands. There are John Moxleys. There are wrestlers that are good. And then there's Kenny fucking Omega. Right? And you see what he's capable of doing and you watch that fucking match and you think to yourself, what the fuck are you doing? This is unbelievable. Like, unbelievable to me. And I get it. Like, I feel like there's a degree where I appreciate that there are times where there's almost certainly a lot of negativity about AEW. And I get that can probably feel overwhelming. And I get that it can be difficult when people who used to like the show or used to think things are good now don't think it's good anymore. But I don't see how anybody can take a look at how they've handled the Kenny's return and think that AEW is prioritizing it. Like, it's maybe a priority, but it's like 4th or 5th on the list. It's not right the fuck up there. And I'm sorry. Like, I don't get it. I don't get how you look at that and think, geez, Adam Copeland's more important to us right now. Right? Like, fine, but I'm going to have a feeling about that. I'm sorry I am.
And there's been this real kind of contradiction in the way people have discussed this. Right? So when we say, like, this is what you do with Kenny Omega, that's not like AEW bad. That's like, this is how you want to present it. And you would say, right, so what could they do? So I would take it back. So saying like, oh, you can't give him a Tokyo Dome. Right? Okay, so what could they do that they're not doing that New Japan gave him? So promos. When he came back in 2022, right, he was a mute. He was a mute all the way through. Live mic, no live mic. In fact, he stole a live mic when he was coming, right?
Yes.
He's a mute all the way through to Revolution. That's not how you treat stars. This live mic thing, I'm going to keep on about it because it's so important. And how they manipulate that is absolutely critical. So now you get that build, right? So he comes out of Power Struggle, he has a live mic for that amount of time. Okay. On AEW, he came back as a suit.
He didn't say a fucking word.
No, he comes back as a fucking suit, right? They bring him back as a star and they put him in that chair and he's like, this egotistical, villain. And they play into all that in the history because you want him to surpass him and we're going to get these guys over as baby faces. We're going to get these guys over as baby faces choosing Kenny Omega. It's not fucking hard, right? I know goes to heel now, but you can see where they're going. You can see why they did this, right? So it's like, okay. So is he going to get the live promos? Look at the promo work that he did there. He has to get that time. You have to say, MJF, you can shut up for fucking 20 minutes for once. Kenny needs this time. Kenny needs that spot. Are you going to do that, John Moxley? I don't know. But live promos, they didn't give him that last time. This thing, he's a good promo. When he's invested and he can do that and the character work, but you have to give him that time. Okay? So they can give him that. Can they give him the presentation? Can they make everything he does feel special, or will they throw matches out on 2 days' notice like MJF?
Right.
Yeah, and they don't do that whole thing like, oh, there was a story there. I don't give a shit. How long was the actual promotion? How long was that a thing on TV? Was it positioned to succeed, or was it stuck on a day that wouldn't draw, which it was? Did you give it a chance to something? Did you make this guy feel as big as he actually is, or did you just throw it out there? that's what New Japan do. We've had the build, we had from Power Struggle, we had the promos, we had the press conference. You know, they run VRs, they run history, they stick the matches out of Kenny Omega. It's not the same. Like, you can do these things. There is nothing stopping you doing these things to make people feel important. It's not just about a fucking entrance and on a big stage. And they can put him on a big stage. Are you telling me that you can't treat him like Bryan Danielson?
Oh, I was just about to say.
You're calling Bryan Danielson the heart and soul of your company. No, look at this fucking guy. If you give him that presentation and that reverence, you don't think it will be better off for you? Yeah, rather than treating him like... It's all elite fucking wrestling. All elite wrestling, right? Whether you like it or not, Tony, it's all elite wrestling. And, you know, it's Kenny Omega. If you don't have this guy at the center of your company, and that doesn't mean he needs to be the most push guy all the time, but if you don't recognize him as the heart of that company and you don't treat him like that, then people will look down on that company because they can see what he can be, because he can go to New Japan and do that. And that's always been in his deal. You know, I think there's questions about, is Kenny signed with New Japan now as a secondary deal? I think that's going to be a question for the next couple of months as well. Will he do more there? Absolutely. He's already talking about Shingo. He's talking about tagging with Tanahashi. You know, he's talking about doing other work in Japan. So we're going to see more of him in that. But you are going, and while we do, you're going to see more of that differentiation in the presentation. And he spoke about it. I want to be presented like Roman Reigns. That does not mean I win every fucking match. It means you present me as special. Every match I have is special. I'm a special attraction at this age. You know, I'm not young anymore. I can't fly around like 2016 G1. I'm a special attraction, but you treat me like I'm important. You don't get this wrong this time. And you've already started poorly. And I like the video. I like that he did the videos on that. He was never going to be on Dynamite. We all knew that he was flying that day because he was doing a press conference on Friday. But, like, you fucked it up with the Copeland thing already. So fix it. And I don't care what Moxie's plans is. I don't care what the Death Rider plans is. I don't care what any of this shit is. Like, if you don't realize that this is the key, like, the momentum changer that you've been chasing since you fucked up, like, Swerve and Hangman and other things, like, that's it. You either embrace it or you don't.
It certainly seems like, you know, let me put it this way. It certainly seems like New Japan was very happy to present AEW stars as big deals in a way that sometimes AEW does not. Their treatment
I recognize that too.
Yeah. Their treatment of Takeshita, their treatment of the Young Bucks, like it's hard not to look at Tanahashi sitting there crying over Kenny Omega's match and thinking that man will do whatever the fuck he has to do to keep Kenny coming back for any match he wants to have. What do you want, Kenny? We'll make it happen for you. You know, and if Tony's not willing to do that, like there's fucking other options out there. Like, you know what I mean? Like at this point, people have made enough money that they don't have to sit and wait for WWE to call. Like, and I think that's the part where it's like, I don't know. That's where I find it sort of frustrating, right? Like you said, it's all elite wrestling. And I'm not trying to shit on anybody in specific. Like, I'm not. I didn't start watching all elite wrestling because I'm a giant fan of fucking Edge, right? Or because I'm a big Jeff Jarrett girl, right? Like it's great that you have these guys and it's fine that you want to use them, but you have also got Kenny fucking Omega. And what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm sorry, what the fuck? Like,
yeah. And you bring him back as a suit and not the god of pro wrestling.
Right. Here's Executive Vice President Kenny Omega. Vice Principal Christopher Daniels is here to introduce him, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ. So I start on that one. But
okay. We got to go back to Wrestle Kingdom or Wrestle Dynasty. We can't go off on an AEW tangent now.
Yeah, sure. But you did bring up a really interesting point where you said they're presented in a way that they're not done in AEW and treated in a way that they're not done in AEW. And there is an element of that. And there is an element of that resonates with those talents. You know, I think it was described because, you know, New Japan really rolled out the red carpet and they felt important. And it was like a pleasant surprise. And then the crowd embraced them, you know, with the Bucks as well. You know, there was lots of talk going in about they wouldn't get a reaction, they wouldn't get anything. And then the crowd were real happy to see it. You know, we had all the chants and stuff and they were happy with the win. So, you know, that was kind of, I think, and they got thick. So I think that was a bit of a surprise for them as well, but a pleasant one. You know, for everybody else too, because you saw like, oh, they're the Young Bucks. And this is what they look like when you take away all the kind of bullshit that AEW never dissipated. And this is like the of it. And same with Kenny as well. Like he can just be this character. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that we talk about. And, you know, he doesn't have to worry about, you know, someone else undercutting his moves or, you know, cutting down his promo time or, you know, his themes or all the stupid things that happen in AEW with the politics and stuff and everyone working in their own little vacuum. Excuse me. But he doesn't need to do that in New Japan. And the thing about that Tanahashi thing, about Tanahashi crying, this is the greatest babyface of all time, in a fit of tears, it felt real emotion. It wasn't like, rah-rah AEW stuff that's going over there moment. And I don't always want to compare it to AEW or that, but that is a difference. You're seeing that in real time. And that's why I think you got this explosive emotion response after this, while I was too busy riding roller coasters. But I think that's why you got it, was because you can see that comparison in real time. You can feel it. You felt that. Like when Tanahashi's crying, that actually set me off. I was just like, done. Tanahashi set me off. And because you felt that moment, and that's when I felt you felt like him crying like that. And that's his like natural response. Made you think about Kenny's journey. Made you think about what gave the kids comfort. But made you think about the toils and the struggle with New Japan. And the fact that this guy was away for so long because of whatever happened. And he leaves just after the Tanahashi match where they play into it and they use like, it's ironic actually thinking about that, but that was like, which version of this is better for New Japan? That was the whole story of that match. So all that emotion, all that history is wrapped up, and it didn't need like some rah-rah promo. It didn't need some huge backstage segment. All it needed was Tanahashi displaying real emotion.
It felt like, to me, the flip side of the emotion I felt at the end of Naito versus Hiromu, where you looked at Naito and you went, time has passed him by. Like, you look at Naito and you feel, as this is going to sound terrible, the inevitable outcome that is death. We will all age and die. And you looked at Kenny Omega's match and you felt like Tanahashi and you wanted to cry because you were like, we have more time. We didn't think we were going to have this time. We were terrified we weren't going to have it. We have that time. Oh God, we're so lucky. How lucky are we to live in a world where Kenny Omega is here and is wrestling for us? Like, what else could you possibly want as a wrestling fan?
John, that's the feeling you chase. All this bollocks about restore the feeling. Kenny Omega might just be the feeling.
He's been the feeling for a long time.
Yeah, and the Elite might as a whole just be the feeling. I think that's what I felt coming off this show. And we're not talking about the new Elite, by the way, when I say that. We're talking about the four that are.
Right.
And when you think about it, and you think about the last few years, and you watch, and the Bucks in the Dome as well, who structured that match incredibly. Like, they sent it on Jeff Cobb, you get his offense over because you know that you're not doing that match. This is the chance for United Empire to kind of get their shine. And then you protect Naito. Naito looked the best I've seen him in months. He's like flipping around and shit. And Matt's playing with Hiromu, and I'm not gonna say that I wasn't happy about that because it was great. But
I knew that popped you. I was like, oh God, this is like her greatest dream come true.
I was like, the funny thing was is like he came out in this stupid costume like Hiromu again, and I was like, Matt Jackson, you're going to have to up your game. And he came out in like 10,000 pearls, and I was like, yeah, fair play, okay.
But they were I have to say they were artfully applied in a way that I'm not sure all of Matt Jackson's pearls have been. Like, it feels like he's elevated his look, and not to jump on Tunnel Talk's, thing.
Oh yeah, we're on Tunnel Talk thing here.
Right. But he really did feel like he understood the assignment, and he really thought about his pearl choices and how they were going to work both with his wrestling and his outfit. It was just fucking spectacular. I loved the Young Bucks match. I was like, I've missed these fucking party matches so much, right? But
it had so much other stuff to it. There was so much little bits of stuff I knew as well, but they just got everything spot on, and
they were just having a good. They were having a good fucking time in the ring, and I was too, right? Like, that's the part, like, I just fucking loved it. So I was like, this is great, and you missed them. You were like, geez, I wish they'd been around. Okay, I'm happy to see them back. Let's go.
Yeah, it was like watching them with so much freedom. I felt like they had so much freedom. I think all the pressure of the last few years, it just felt like it completely came off their backs. And they figured it out. This is the hybrid of the EVP era and the previous era. They used old New Japan music, which is very cute. But it makes sense for them to be in that position because you want Hiromu and Naito to chase. You want that to be a big moment. I do think that should be in Japan.
Yes.
I know I know the sensibilities of putting it in like California and doing that match there and the value of the yen against the dollar. But I do think that match should be New Japan. That moment, that Hiromu and Naito moment, should be on their biggest stage for their audience because that is a domestic match for me.
Agreed.
So I would like to see that. But I like the idea of them chasing the Bucks and, working with, you can see it from that match alone that Naito being able to work with those three guys. And Hiromu, he wanted to work with them at Forbidden Door when he couldn't come and he was devastated. But you can see how much he was enjoying it. But it's the same thing. Do you know what that's like? It's because of the way they protect people. They know how to structure it. And we spoke about this at Forbidden Door, personally. I don't think we spoke about it on podcast, but the way they protected Tanahashi in climbing the ropes.
Yep.
Just so he wasn't that 15 seconds where you went, fuck, this guy's old. And the way that they protected Sting, Hiromu could be Darby just as much. He's still a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
But the way that they structure, and especially Nick structures these matches to do that, is perfect. And so they are the guys, they're perfect for Naito right now. That is exactly the kind of thing you want to do. And that works really, really well. And we went for a nice stretch of matches. We had the Ishii Takeshita match, which was the better of the two Takeshita matches.
Unbelievable match. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fucking fantastic match.
And I think it worked better than the Shingo match because they were slightly different styles and sizes.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
You have I thought that Shingo and Takeshita are too similar in some ways. But then when you have someone like Ishii and you can work with that, it's just sensational. Like the end sequence, like that crowd was dead up to then, right?
Yep.
They care about Claudio and Shota. At all, they didn't care about most things. They had Lucha Gauntlet, and they were into parts of the women's matches at times, but they were not. It was like a different feeling. And they did Finley and Brody King, but there was nothing like that. That was like the first time that place felt alive that day.
Yeah.
So, but Takeshita. Should we talk about Takeshita?
Let's talk
about Takeshita.
Let's talk about Takeshita
in New Japan. And people told me it was bollocks and told me I was lying and all this thing. And they told Tim Hunter, our friend, who's had to tolerate me for 5 days now out here. They told me he was lying and that sort of thing. Okay. Takeshita gets that spot on Wrestle Kingdom. He's the only kind of talent from outside to do that. They use his DDT theme. Quite interesting. And then he gets a spot on the second day. He has a never title. Takeshita is the guy they're targeting. The Kadani comment. The Kadani comments. What's the line? I'm going to get that.
You want me to get it from down here?
Yeah, you can find that while I just I talk about Takeshita a bit more. It's fine.
I'm not sure. Again, so this is a translation of a Japanese Tokyo Sports article. So I apologize for any, forgive me, but. Takaki Kadani has indicated that he believes Konosuke Takeshita has signed a 1-year contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He noted that AEW holds a limited number of dates compared to New Japan Pro Wrestling, suggesting that if Takeshita desires to be a leading wrestler for New Japan, that opportunity may very well be available to him.
Yeah, so that is the most interesting statement anybody's made about Takeshita all weekend.
Yeah.
You remember after Wrestle Dream, we spoke about Takeshita getting that belt and we said that he would not get elevated. And he would still be in the same spot.
Yep.
And it happened.
Yep.
And we said that after the G1, Takeshita had personally, while he was in Japan, expressed the want to be part of New Japan.
Yep.
And he felt like the environment was much more suited to him. And he's monetary-wise, there's always a pull of AEW, but he's not in a bad position family-wise, I believe. All of that came to a head here. This was Takeshita, how he should be presented. This is one of the best wrestlers in the world. And again, you've got that top-heavy issue in AEW, and he's not the guy they're going to choose to elevate.
Nope.
Especially because, so he is perfect for that role in New Japan. And I found it very interesting that he said that AEW had limited dates. I thought that was quite an interesting comment that we maybe haven't spoken about previously.
I did a bad job on this, though, Trish. I should note that this translation came from Chris Samsa on Twitter, so I apologize for not saying that up front, but that's where the translation came from. So continue.
Yeah. Chris does a great job, so
yes,
thank you.
Yes.
But you saw it here. They gave him the time. They gave him the opponents. They gave him the best possible opponents to get him across for that crowd.
Yep.
And when they did the rundown on Saturday, I don't know if you guys heard this on the audio or not, but they run through all the matches. And you get like the audience response. You just kind of grade like who were they looking forward to seeing when they bought their tickets, right? So obviously the loudest was Hiromu and Naito, which is expected. And then the second loudest wasn't Zack and Shota, it was Takeshita and Shingo.
Yep.
And it was interesting. And listen to response to Takeshita, they presented him like a star. He does have the opportunity there. If he wants it, he can be that guy.
Yes.
And I think they've got a few that can. I think Yoda Tsuji is stepping up. You know, people are looking at Oiwa coming in and saying he could be something. There's lots of potential, but he has it put together. He has that explosive. He has that speed. He has that thing that it is that aura. I hate the word aura now because it's been fucking wrecked. But he has that aura that this is the guy, and you can feel it, and the energy changes when he comes and he's involved in things.
Yeah,
and it could be a spot. His contract was due up, I think, with AEW at the end of this year, and there's been some interesting lines on this.
Yeah,
and I think people were, I don't know if it's cope or what. Can't use cope anymore, can we now? Cope is a fucking name now. But it's like, I don't know what it is. I think this is smart on AEW's perspective, whether it's Tony working out with Rocky or whatever, is do this now, or you could face the potential of losing him completely.
Yeah.
Okay? Because he's not going to get that much higher up in AEW. No. He's not going to get the screen time. You can give him a fucking belt. That doesn't fucking mean anything. Like, all the things that define people in AEW in terms of their importance, he's not going to move up in that thing. But in New Japan, he can be the ace. He can be the guy. He can be the lead. And they obviously see him like that because you don't put him in these spots if you don't.
He's further along than, like a Tsuji is good, right? But he's further along than Tsuji. And so, and that's not to say that somebody like Shota can't put it together, right? But at this point, like, if they need somebody to bridge a gap, he's ready to bridge that gap. And I think it's very clear that, like you said, the belt means fucking nothing in AEW. I don't want to hear another excuse about how, no, Tony's pushing him. He won blank title. What has Private Party done? What has Daniel Garcia done? What has Takeshita done? They've done fucking jack and shit. And it's not any of those guys' individual faults. I don't want to hear, Garcia's bland and Private Party are stupid and boring. Fuck you. Those guys have been given nothing. Nothing. They've had to do with whatever crumbs got left over after MJF's last 25-minute promo, right? So fine. I think that hopefully Tony Khan has learned some lessons from the Lucha Brothers in terms of being like, you give guys the impression that they don't have anywhere to go and they're going to take off. Because why would you stick around if you're just going to hit a ceiling that you can't break?
You can't solve that by just chucking a belt at them. So the answer was, we'll give you more money and we'll give you a trios winner all in. And it's like, yeah, but they're still going to be in the same spot. Well, you can go there and maybe you'll be in a lesser spot, maybe in a bigger spot, but there's more opportunity. That's what we talk about in a second. It's the same with Takeshita. You can see the opportunity for him, and maybe it increases value with Tony Khan enough eventually. But that's an ironic thing. But that's the spot. It's open for him, and he's ready for it. He doesn't. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't have the limitations or some of the things that need to be worked on, a Tsuji or an Umino, or even a Zack. To be fair,
right?
He's charismatic. Let's be honest. He looks good. The amount of women that I heard doing the Takeshita, it's like that might seem thing and it was a cliche, but that is a key part of New Japan's market.
Yeah,
let's be honest. We've seen that in the past as well. But he's going to be there regularly. He's going to be. I was speaking to someone the other day who said, he's going to be there very regular this year. This is his shot. He can really kind of put this on his back if he wishes to, and kind of go for it. The presentation, all the elements are there. This is their guy. This is the closest they've got for somebody. And for them, it's the same thing as what we talk about in AEW. It's like, don't screw it up, and then we'll see what happens in November, December, what happens with AEW. But the idea that this is just, he's just working some indies is not how New Japan sees it. I don't think it's how Takeshita sees it. Let's be honest about this now, because I can finally do that. It's fucking great. And I don't think it's how AEW sees it. So, this isn't gifting Takeshita to New Japan.
It was a funny line to take. Like, it's just like him working indies or him working DDT. Like, it's clearly not. Like, there's clearly more to it than this. And it's hopefully that, listen, the guy should be happy, right? Like, he should be happy with what he's doing. He should feel fulfilled at his job. And if he thinks he's not getting opportunities at AEW that he deserves, then good for him. Go elsewhere. I'd say the same about any talent from any promotion, right? Like, move around. It's good for the business in general.
Wow.
What's up?
I just bought and financed a car through Carvana in minutes.
You? The person who agonized 4 weeks over whether to paint your walls eggshell or off-white bought and financed a car in minutes?
They made it easy. Transparent terms, customizable down and monthly. Didn't even have to do any paperwork.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, have you checked out that spreadsheet I sent you for our dinner options?
Finance your car with Carvana and experience total control. Financing subject to credit approval.
And that's the thing, right? So we talk about these companies in kind of very kind of rigid terms sometimes, but there are opportunities for New Japan and for these wrestlers that, can't find a spot in AEW or can't find, the movement upwards to go and do something. So creatively, it's a fulfilling thing having this relationship between AEW and New Japan, because they can go there and they can be creative. They can feel that different feeling. Kenny can go back and have that focus on him that he can't get when if he would be returning in AEW, like the first match back. The Bucks can go there and kind of work with that freedom. You've got to get, we all look at Hangman and go, fucking, someone get him to New Japan, please. Like, I know it's been talked about, but someone go get him. But it's like, there is an opportunity for New Japan in a way that wasn't there a few years ago because of the bloated roster of UW to be this kind of creative outlet for some of these people, which will benefit them.
Yes.
So that's something to think about with this relationship we don't really talk about as much. That's not a negative thing. It's not like, oh, AEW are fucking up so that these guys need to go to New Japan. It gives them another opportunity to do something like that. And Takeshi, coming to the G1 was something he really wanted to do. Tony supported him on that. And it's all kind of spiraled from there. But it's like, for New Japan, it's like, yes, you are not the lesser of this relationship, but for once you're the younger brother, essentially. But there are opportunities for you in this, which makes, my transition where we're going here. That makes the Chris Charlton stuff a bit more interesting.
I was literally going to be like, oh, the Chris Charlton stuff. I don't know how much of this audio did you listen to at all, Trish, or were you able to listen to any of it?
I've seen clips of it. I will say a lot of it is very similar to things I've heard on more Tag League or other shows. And I'm going to precursor this that I do watch most shows in Japanese commentary, and I have done for a long time. I just like to feel like the atmosphere and stuff, and I don't necessarily need everything explained, because if you watch like the backstage comments all the time and you're watching like their other stuff, I don't feel like I need the stories explained to me. And that's just a personal view. I've always done that. I've done that for a long time now. But so I only heard clips after, but a lot of the things that were said are very similar to what had been said before on commentary. And what did you think? What was your impression when you heard it? Like, because I know, like, you don't see a lot of this stuff, so. And you're coming in as predominantly an AEW viewer, which would have been a lot of,
I did not think very highly of Charlton after Wrestle Kingdom. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I didn't feel like he was really adding a lot. And, everybody has their preferences with announcers. I can't say that I am like a giant announcer person. Like, I like the announcers. I like sometimes the tone of voice will just irritate me for no reason. I felt like Charlton wasn't adding a lot, and he was sort of... it felt like to me like there was just a lot of screaming. And then it got so much worse on Sunday. And I think one of the things that is getting missed by people who maybe didn't listen to his commentary or are just kind of going off of like one comment is how this was a thing that was going on throughout the entire show. This was not just Kenny Omega's match. This was not just like a one-off comment about Tony Khan being a money mark. There was constant negativity towards any AEW wrestler throughout the whole show. He started with, he was going on about how AEW says it's where the best wrestle, but you can't do anything if you haven't been in a New Japan ring. He said Shibata had gone into business for himself during his last New Japan exhibition match. And so, he wasn't going to... True, but... Hey, I mean, these things are true. Like, I'm not saying they're not true, but I'm also kind of like, do I need to hear this now? Like, he was talking about... he was saying the stuff he was saying, I thought that really kind of went over the line was like the talents. He was talking about how AEW had stolen a New Japan talent. And he was saying that they paid Okada millions of dollars to be a meme on the internet. Like, he's flat out said that at one point. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like you can have that opinion, but is that the kind of thing you want to say at this point? Like, Okada's not even on the fucking show. Like, it wasn't building to anything, right? So it was just like, it was a lot.
No, there is an element on the Okada thing that Suji is doing a story of using that, but then you need to say, like, this is Suji's thing to make it a character thing.
Didn't. It was very difficult. And then during, you could tell once Rocky joined the commentary booth, I felt like, and I could be totally wrong about this, there were a couple of comments that Charlton made and the audio would just go silent for like an extended period of time. And part of me was like, is he getting an earful? Like, did he get told to turn off his mic so we could get told to calm down? Like, it was absolutely like, it just got really bad. And then during the Kenny match, it just got out of control. And like, some of it I do believe, and I believe this, like, I believe some of it is him trying to build on the whole Kenny Omega, Gabe Kidd feud. But he was saying what Gabe Kidd had been saying, and it didn't come across as like part of the story. Like, there wasn't a detachment there. Like there is sometimes with the best announcers where they're healing it up, but they're also detached in a way. He was just like, Kenny's not New Japan. Kenny's an executive. That's the reason he got this match. And Rocky is next to him going, well, no, Kenny's done a lot for New Japan. Kenny really, has had a big New Japan career, like clearly trying to get the guy back on track, and he just was not stopped. So like, this is the part where I appreciate that folks are frustrated that he got suspended, and I understand that. But this was not a question of like a one comment thing. It was a whole thing that was. And Trish, and hopefully anybody who listens to this knows that I am not a stand-up for AEW person. Like, criticize the fucking company. And quite frankly, if it had been funny or interesting or something I wanted to listen to, I would have been like, yeah, that is funny. That's a good line. Go ahead. Like Nigel sometimes, he says some of the craziest fucking shit. I was like, yeah, that's funny. I don't agree with it, but it's a good line. This was not funny. It was not interesting. It did not add to the match. In fact, most of the time it was detracting from it, because like, you're in the middle of Kenny versus Gabe and Charlton screaming about how Bryce is a AEW referee, like screaming about it. And it's just like, dude, like, could we calm down for 2 seconds? Like, I'm trying to focus on what's fucking going on in the ring.
It's like sometimes in the sports in the UK, you have the option where you can just turn the commentary off, and it's like stadium noise. You might be better off. So I've only seen part of the comments, especially with time and but I think there's some really important things to note on this one. So the line coming from New Japan is he's suspended for 2 months.
Yes.
We were kind of dubious of what they would do, because the 6th is a huge return to work day. This is where we say like the crowds at the 4th to the 5th is always going to be so different, because everybody goes back to where, which hometown or whatever, and then they go to work on the 6th. And there was a visible change you can see in like the transport, everything yesterday. So he does have a shoot job sort of thing. He has a job outside where there was no guarantee that he would be working Dash anyway, but it was quite obvious later on, just coming back from Dash, that he was pulled. And then we have the news, that he's been suspended for 2 months, and then we'll see from there. Yeah, he's made these kind of comments before. It sounds like he's made them in a lot more kind of vitriol this time, and a lot more kind of frequently. And my idea of it, so there's a defense that he's trying to do an angle, especially with like Kenny Omega, who's doing the kind of like coming back and doing the John Moxley role. This is kind of similar to how we talk about with promos, right? So if you don't put over your opponent in some ways, then what are you beating? And it's the same thing. It's that Jericho thing, like and that's how it kind of feels to me. And like, I get that they say that they're pushing upwards in a way, but there was no benefit to that. Then you add in that Kenny Omega is the save of this show. There are, and we still don't have this confirmed, but there are a number of people that will tell you that this second date was not booked as a joint show originally, but it was booked originally for Tanahashi's retirement. Right. I've heard that again and again since I've been here. And then Okada leaving was the reason why that didn't happen. And so you can say that they offered him all this money, but Okada chose to go. Now that New Japan office, and the thing is, they were surprised all the way to the end. So even when he hired like Barry Bloom, which should have been like massive red kind of flag, he's done. They still thought after Tanahashi took control of the company that he was going to stay, and they felt like they were caught off guard by that, even though it seemed very obvious at that point that was going to happen. That led to them, if you've got this dome show, and the dome is traditionally harder on the second day. People have their routine. It's that sports team thing. The 4th is the important day. We don't give a fuck about the 5th. And we've seen that in the past. So, the ones during the pandemic, you have 12,000 one day, 6,000 the next, 50%. They looked at it this time. They wanted 75% pretty much. In UK, 75%. They ended up with 16. If you don't have Kenny Omega on that show, and you don't have, and that kind of investment, and whether AEW were completely happy about it, but is one thing. But if that's not on that show, that card is a draw. You can put John Moxley on that show, you can put Jay White on that show, you can put card maybe different. Ospreay on that show. it's not going to draw because it's just a show, and it's not like what they feel. But that was the big draw for that. So it's like you have to be recognition. You have to have recognition as well that Kenny is a representation of AEW on screen, and he has chosen to support your company, whether it's his company or not. So I think it's just detrimental to go completely after AEW in that way. Whether you think it's like, oh, I'm playing up a story, it didn't come across that way. So you're either stupid, a bad commentator, or this was just like an aggression. And I can see the aggression, okay? So this relationship, like every relationship, is not perfect, okay? It's just not. And there was some tension in the build-up to this show. There has been some tension, and it's not, I'm going to get this wrong. So I've seen stuff saying that, they wanted to, like, Tony wanted to pull Kenny in the Bucks after their match was announced and that sort of thing. And I can tell you, like, firsthand, that's not true. Okay? It's not true, from the other side. So it's like, that's not the case. In fact, I believe he was quite encouraging on some of the AEW talent to go and work there. Was Tony difficult in putting this card together and the booking that we see in AEW, the stop-start, that everything changes every week? Did that cause them problems and meant some people couldn't be used or planned and then come out? Yes. This was not easy. There was, and because Tony's not going to sacrifice his AEW booking for this show. Did that lead to them not having every major talent available in the way that, the expectation is the other way around off the good door? Yes. All these things are true. And there are frustrations in the New Japan office and in New Japan about that. Absolutely. But you cannot put these on screen. You cannot make these a public thing. You've exposed it in a way. When Cody went to WWE, we said it exposed the kind of, it broke I've got to stop using the word, it fucking sucks. But it broke that kind of belief that AEW was just like all friends wrestling and, everybody was together and aimed at the same thing.
Yes.
And this did exactly the same thing. So for anyone that doesn't kind of know what's been going on, like, it exposed it. It told you that things aren't perfect. And then it told you about some of the status of the relationship. And that can be more damaging than anything else, especially on a show where we know, how many people do we know that have never seen a New Japan pay-per-view or seen very little that bought this one because of the return of Kenny Omega?
Right.
Or subscribe to World. This is your first impression of this relationship for a lot of people outside of, the AEW Love Forbidden Door. And this is what you saw. And this is what you heard. And that's not going to help anybody in any sense. So you have these frustrations, but you can't put this here. This cannot be on air, and you cannot air it all the way through and kind of, essentially ruin kind of huge matches on that pay-per-view. You want to remember Kenny Omega and Gabe Kidd because of someone's idiotic commentary. You don't. Whether they feel that way or not, whether he's, he's been suspended. Whether that's a suspension that was like, we have to do this or not. And I know the comments rub people up the wrong way. I know it rubbed people up in AEW the wrong way. Where that pressure came from. Maybe it did in New Japan. You have this business culture here where respect is incredibly important. And you can, say things outside. There's a word for like two-face where you have that public presentation. And they failed with this public presentation. That's what happened. So what that means going forward, we don't know. But that doesn't make anyone's life easier. We're going to see more people wanting to adventure to New Japan with how stagnant the top is in AEW. So it's important, I think, for all parties that relationship looks strong. And unfortunately, what's happened is that you've exposed that, and then you've made Tony look not great either because people see it as a direct response. So you can say 100% like, oh, it's 100% New Japan have made this decision. But that's not how the perception is. And it's that perception battle. So it's just really not helped that. And do I believe that Tony Khan is thrilled that Kenny Omega had his return match in New Japan? No, I don't. Do I believe that he's tried to pull him from it or tried to scupper it? No, because that's not what's the case. But it's like, he's not going to be thrilled. They want it from that. And all this stuff about the advertising and stuff and, he couldn't do it on Max. Well, that's bollocks because we've never run a ticket thing on the website. We've never run a ticket thing on anything. Like New Japan is, as Kudani said, it's most about tickets than anything else. World is one thing, but that doesn't mean you can't promote it as a live event. And we didn't do that either. So I think there's different issues here and they're all kind of being mixed up. But what I think it has done is expose some of the nature of the issues in the relationship in a way nothing else could.
I think I feel for Charlton right? If this is something that he's been doing fairly, for a while and nobody's really paid attention because it's been on stuff that people aren't watching. And then he, is basically hitting his same lines on a bigger show, maybe with a little more enthusiasm. Like, I get it. I feel for the guy. But ultimately, from my perspective as somebody watching, it was unprofessional. It just was unprofessional. Yeah. He didn't, like you said, he didn't talk about, I can't imagine Excalibur saying, well, you're in New Japan, but you haven't really experienced anything until you've been on American TV, and that going over well.
That's like a WWE line, isn't it?
It's like a WWE line. It really was. It just felt like from that perspective, for me, it's unprofessional. It didn't add anything to the matches. It didn't make the matches better. Nothing was being explained to me. I felt like I was reading Reddit comments from like the worst fucking, wrestling websites. Like, it was just, I was like, what the fuck is happening here? So like, from that perspective, like I said, if it had been entertaining or interesting or informative, who gives a shit if it wasn't nice? But it was none of those things. And so on that regard, I feel bad for the guy, but I can't envision, like, I kind of feel like he should be suspended. Like, I don't think it's an outrageous response. Yeah. And I do feel a little bit bad because I feel like this, like you said, it's a situation where people are right now very happy to jump on Tony Khan for a lot of things. Some of them justified, please. But I don't feel like this one is something that he even had to make a comment on. Rocky was sitting next to him the whole fucking night, and Rocky was sure as shit didn't sound like he was happy, Like, that's just not, I can't envision any profession, any workplace where I can talk that level of shit about an employer's partner, right? My boss's partner, and wrestlers that are in the ring that, like, I'm selling, like you said, I'm trying to sell tickets to this match. Like, I guess not. So in that regard, I feel bad for the guy. And like you said, it has brought up tensions, but you're always going to have tensions when you have an interpromotional situation. That's why a lot of promotions shy away from this stuff.
They have different aims, they have different aims, different priorities. They change. In AEW, they change 4 times a day. So it's like, that's where there is like a huge difference, So New Japan goes very much on a long-term planning sort of thing, and AEW is much more house on fire. So there is always going to be that kind of flash in that style, especially in recent years. And I think that's just normal. But it's not like this big, like, it's not like, this kind of big referendum on anyone or anything. No. It's a clash. It's like a styles clash in a way in terms of booking mentality, and you're going to have friction in that regard. And that's what we have here. In terms of that, it was unprofessional. I think I agree with you completely that should have been the thing. I thought back to, when I said at the start that the way it was described to me by somebody here that's massive move, and they look at this weekend as like a sample of New Japan. And I think if you saw that as a first point thing and you're an AEW fan, rather than being welcomed in, rather than being kind of brought in and kind of, come and watch our product too. You love this product, you love that. It kind of maybe sent people away. It made me feel like there was an animosity. There was like, it was not gatekeeping, but it's kind of like, this is a closed door. Yeah. And I don't think that's healthy for New Japan either. It probably doesn't make a huge difference because if you put certain names on there, you're going to bring that fan base in. That's what Kenny Omega is. But again, it's just those little things. They can be off-putting, and that can be a difference maker. So, it's what it is now.
It just felt small time. It felt like something you'd get from like GCW or something. Like New Japan like New Japan's better than that. Like, come on.
It's not that much. It's actually not that much difference from what we were talking about with GCW last time. We did these proper shows. We had a great time with some of folks. So I'm not. We did. We called chaos. It was awesome. But it's like last time we did one of these full shows, we talked about GCW and Effie's comments, and it's not too dissimilar in a lot of ways. But this is supposed to be, this is not an independent wrestling promotion. No. This is a promotion that puts 25K in a Tokyo day. So it's just. It's a shame. And I think it's funny because there was some really funny things that week that I kind of kept noticing where it kind of felt like you could tell in a weird way. So this promotion thing, right? When you come to Japan, if you buy a ticket for Wrestle Dynasty, which the name, by the way, comes from New Japan, not Dynasty's American pay-per-view. It was the name they were originally going to give the show at MSG. Thank you, Chris, again, for reminding us.
Yep.
You would not know that AEW was part of this. Okay, Kenny is presented and Ricochet, because they were the two foreign talent that were on the posters and things. They are presented as New Japan talent. Every poster that you see says New Japan, Shin Nihon presents, New Japan presents. There is no mention of AEW. It's not like, the best thing was, there's actually, there's two moments that I nearly, I died laughing at them. So they bring up this huge, like, side screen when it comes up at Dynasty, and it's just like New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Dynasty. Not Joey. And then later they did the VR for like all the shows for this coming year. And yep. They said like AEW New Japan present, and I just fucking laughed my head off. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, this has not been presented as a joint show. Not in Japan at all. And it hasn't with AEW, you know, they don't put anything about it on their website, they're not promoting tickets for it, they didn't promote Kenny's return match. And I can get an element of the WBD story in terms of, if you were WBD, would you want to be promoting Kenny Omega going back anyone else on a service that's not yours?
No.
I get that. Do I believe it fully when they promote watch Ring of Honor pay-per-views all the time or other things? No, I don't. No. I think maybe there's an element to that, but I think it's a cheap pop out. Because this has been this weird kind of switch between where it's an AEW show, so it's fine that Kenny Omega's coming back there. When it's not an AEW show, it's a New Japan Present show using AEW talent. Same with the Doors. And then this thing of, you know, it's not an AEW show and we can't promote it. So there's this like kind of cross between the two that's been really interesting. And I don't think, whatever the reason, I don't think it's helped anybody in that aspect. Obviously, New Japan are disappointed with the attendance. They're talking about if they're going to run a show like without New Japan with AEW again, it would be like in a smaller place. But this was not a joint show. This was not presented as a joint show. Whether you have the politics of working out who was going to do what, fine. But this was presented as a New Japan show in Japan. So as much as people look at it and say, okay, so what does New Japan do for Forbidden Door? And there's a huge difference. So New Japan, one, you'll find it on their website. Two, we just talked about it, they put it on their VRs. Three, they run lots of interviews and that sort of thing in there. They actually run a preview program where they preview all the matches and explain people that you may not have seen previously. They run kind of lots of press in the last week. They put all the old matches on World of a lot of the competitors. I remember them going nuts at Adam Page, like in the Forbidden Door 1 as well, like that. So they actually do a whole lot more of other little bits of promotion. And this is a show that's only going to get 5,000 pay-per-view buys tops in Japan because it's at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. It's not the same. And why they made them decisions, who they made them decisions, that's up to them. But I do think it's a missed opportunity, and you do need to now promote, you know, Kenny's return and make that big deal out of it. Do the opposite of what you did when we had the match with Will Ospreay, and we ignored that as well.
Yeah,
like,
they can't do that.
You've made these decisions now. Yeah, you've made these decisions now. Kenny's made these decisions. Whatever, you know, has happened here, you have to build off that. So don't ignore it. Like, okay, you say you can't promote it, you couldn't promote it previously, I think that's bollocks or whatever. You need to use it now and use it for your advantage because you should be getting that off this thing. This Kenny Omega thing is like, it felt like the biggest thing in the world because it was. And now it's about how you translate that. So don't worry about anything else. Just worry about how you translate that. And how you translate that awful timing is not to put Jeff Jarrett will appear tweet.
Oh my God, the timing of that, Trish.
Oh my God.
Watching that match and then seeing a tweet, Jeff Jarrett will appear and will speak live. And you're just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
No.
And I don't have anything against, and I say this I feel like I say this every episode. I don't have any issue with any of these guys in a vacuum. And I don't want to get into the trope of being like ex-WWE because it's not about WWE or not WWE. It's about freshness. It's about people feeling exposure. It's about authenticity. It's about watching a show and thinking, hey, this is cool, and not saying this is stupid. Why are they doing this? Right? Like just the parade of old people. It's getting to be exhausting. And Jeff Jarrett getting a live mic in the middle of the ring multiple weeks in a row. Right? Coming off of that world's.
You know that Jeff Jarrett has had more live promo time than Jay White and Hangman did during the World That was what I was about to say. Like, they didn't have any fucking promo time for their, and you're giving it to Jeff fucking Jarrett? Again, this is your best option to bring in young people, to bring in new viewers. Like, you're on Max now. So let's do what? Oh, the Rock and Roll Express and Jeff Jarrett and Adam Copeland and Christian Cage and Chris Jericho. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Like, I get it, and I'm not opposed to any of these things if there was something interesting happening, but how many incredible young wrestlers do you have sitting in the fucking back, scrambling to get 2 minutes of a pre-tape while you trot out fucking guys whose best days were 20 years ago? It's just, I don't get it. I'm tired of it. I'm baffled by it. I know that I should make my peace with it and come to an acceptance. Like, this is what it is. This is what Tony wants. These are his guys, right? Like, these are his guys. It's Danielson, it's Punk, it's Sting, it's Samoa Joe, it's Adam Copeland, it's Christian Cage, it's not Kenny, it's not fucking, it's Ospreay, fine for now. Like, but it's like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, has anyone gotten successful using older guys? Like, did TNA do a really good job and good business using old XW? I don't think so, Trish. I think I've heard a couple stories about how TNA didn't do a good job with that. Like, come on. Like, I think that was the difficult part about going, seeing Collision and being like, all day Sunday, I was like, all right, I'm going to watch Wrestle Kingdom, and then I'm going to watch Wrestle Dynasty, and then I'm going to watch Collision. I'll get caught up on Collision. And every time I went on Twitter, there's a clip. I'm watching a pre-tape video. Moxley is in a balaclava tying up the Rock and Roll Express with duct tape. Like, I'm all set. I'm going to go back and watch Kenny's match again.
See me fucking do. It's like, see me fucking do.
I'm gonna skip this one, guys. Oh, Christopher Daniels is beating up Hangman. I think I'm gonna put Kenny's match back on. Like, okay, sure. Like, that's what you want to do, buddy. You go right ahead. I'm gonna spend my time and my money on something else.
That always reminds me of like when I used to watch a New Japan show and then watch a AAA show right after, and then realize that I should have watched it the other way. Bullshit. Yeah, I think that it's so jarring, and they have so many people that are overexposed. So I don't want to use the word age ever again. It's exposure. So you have these people that are not fresh, who have been at the same spot for years and years and years, and there is no advantage of putting them there. And you can say the audience has changed. And I know a lot of people spotted the reaction to, the face-off with Jericho and Copeland, and the crowd that was 3,000. They did 7,000 with the 5v5 with Hangman and Dark Order versus the Elite. That crowd went nuts for it. So that audience has changed. Where have those 4,000 gone that would have gone nuts for the original matches? Where have they gone? Where have you ran them off to? That's where you've lost viewers. That's not about Punk. It's not about anything else. But that's like, the audience has changed. But the audience is changing to the product that you present. And all for the last year and for God knows how long it's been, these guys are more important than our guys.
Yep.
We're going to give them the mic time. We're going to give them the chance. They're going to be featured. They're going to be promoted. And they're going to get the key wins and key spots. Okay, fine.
Say what you want about Ricochet. He's doing something different. He fucking is doing something different. It's interesting. I'm intrigued by it. I want to watch it. It's different. Absolutely. It's not something he's done before.
Yeah, so what they're doing with that is clever. So as much as he looked like a geek for the first bit, if you then do the next angle, you turn that around. But he and the people that are working with him, in that story with Strickland and the Hurt Business and Will Washington, I think he has a major role in it. Their understanding is very much that you can't come in and just be WWE superstar Ricochet.
No.
You need to create your own character. That's that freshness. People that come in from WWE that are successful in AEW and feel fresh are the ones that do something different. Like a Swerve Strickland, like a Tony Storm,
Like a fucking John Moxley in 2019. Yes.
Who is now regressed to 2018 WWE style storytelling, which is infuriating.
It hurts so much.
It really does hurt. It's awful feeling. And the way that they treated, and you can say, oh, Jay's got a match and Hangman, they've killed that Hangman heel character completely because of with what he's done, playing the tweener shit and that. And then it's infuriating. But this is the thing. So it's that overexposure that now I have Adam Copeland doing his WWE gimmick on screen and doing his relationship with Christian Cage. And it's like, and he's the top guy in that thing. And then we've got Jeff Jarrett saying I'm going for a title. And it's just like, you have so many of these incredible wrestlers who are at the peak of their top of the form. And we're doing TNA tribute acts. That's what this is. This is the most TNA that AEW has ever felt. Because it doesn't feel justified. Are you telling me that pushing Jeff Jarrett on TV is going to get you more of a response than 20 minutes with Orange Cassidy? Is that what you're telling me? Are you telling me that Adam Copeland can achieve more than Kenny Omega? Well, we've seen that. We've got all the data to prove that. That's fucking bollocks. But that's what you're telling the viewer. You're telling the people that these people are more important. And you did that exactly. What did I say about this fucking 4-way? Well, I didn't want to talk about World's End because fuck it. But other than the Continental Classic.
We said it. It was a lead-in for Copeland's return.
Yeah, and if you do that, you can fuck off. Because what you did was, we're doing this story to elevate the young guys. We're fucking not. All we're doing is keeping the status quo.
Yep.
Right? It's the same people. It's not changed the world. It's changed the world fucking back. Right? It's like, we're keeping all our spots. Private Party got elevated. They got the belts. And then the Bucks, and then they're great in the tunnel talk. Tell us that was never planned for them to get those belts. So we did this beat down moment where we made them look like complete geeks. And it wasn't going to have a payoff. So, yeah, that was greatly rewarding. Well done for that. And then we never gone back to it, and now they've not been elevated anyway because it's still the same guys in the same spots. And then we take Adam Page and we take the most interesting heel character coming out of there, and rather than elevating him, we just fucking de-emphasize him for 3 months, and now he has to start again. And now he's getting beat up by a fucking suit.
Trish!
After taking 3 orange punches and, a buckshot. What the
Don't even get me started on that. Trish, who's your biggest babyface faction in AEW right now?
Yeah, so this is a spoiler because, Tunnel Talk,
yes, they came up with this idea. If this was something they put together, and I'm like, holy shit, this is their biggest fucking babyface faction.
Their biggest babyface faction is Undisputed Era.
In fucking 2025 in AEW.
An NXT gimmick that AEW pulverized is the biggest babyface faction and a babyface leader that people don't like, and they did the fucking reunion in Orlando in the home NXT market,
and nobody give a fuck.
They booed. What are you doing? So you had someone like the Conglomeration, and you take him out of that and put him into this, so Adam Cole can still do the same gimmick that he's been doing for the last 10 years and the same promos, and it's like, how backwards is this? That is your number one babyface faction right now.
Yeah. There's no bigger faction.
No, the Undisputed Era. Shake your fucking self, right? When Kenny walks in that room tomorrow, or tomorrow for me anyway, because it's Tuesday, give yourself a fucking shake and work it out. And I don't care if it pisses off. I don't care if, because that's been the basis of a lot of the stuff this year, And it's like, my funny thing is, right? I've said enough today. I think we said quite a bit. I actually sound like I actually know things, which is very rare because I really don't. But when Jon Moxley came back and the basic premise was, this shit sucks, I'm going to sort it out. And then you do what you're doing. And then people criticize it. And you cut promos and you say to people that then comes through on others, on podcast or whatever, they just don't understand it. No, John, we do understand it. We just think it fucking sucks, and we think it's damaging people in the meantime. You may have a beginning, you may have an end. Hell, that end is looking pretty wishy-washy at the moment. Are you going to be able to do that? Or is Kenny Omega going to do exactly the same thing in 2023 and be the biggest babyface in the fucking company? And you're going to wreck that? You had the biggest fucking heel in the company and you've already wrecked that? Are you going to continue to look sideways and close your eyes and look like Naito when he can't see fucking anything? Or are you going to switch and not worry about if it pisses somebody off because it's the right thing to do for the company? I think it's interesting that even the likes of Sean Ross Sapp have broken from kind of talking around it. Normally he does that thing where he talks around something where he goes, I think this will happen, but he knows it's thing. And he's like, they're going to go, Moxley to Darby to Christian, and it's a shit idea. So there's obviously pressure now on this.
Yeah.
But the idea we're going to put Jay White, I've heard people say, put Jay White at Grand Slam and then Copeland at Revolution. And that's the whole thing where you're basically saying we don't think Jay White's on our level, to me. And we've not given the opportunity to do so. Because I bet you Adam Copeland is going to get far more promo time in this program than any of those guys got in the last one.
Or will get going forward.
Yeah, and this is that thing about structure. But do I think Adam Page could deliver more numbers-wise or anything else than Adam Copeland? Absolutely, we've seen that. Do I believe Kenny Omega could? Yes, that's it. Do I believe Swerve Strickland could? Yes. Even Will Ospreay will get there. He will get there. I'm not worried about Will Ospreay. If you see a man get an hour of TV time on a pay-per-view, right, and get every opportunity to wrestle, the way that he wants to and get promoted and get merchandise and everything else, there is no worry about Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is a chosen one. He will get there. He will get his spot. You don't need to worry about it. He's not wrestling with one hand behind his fucking back like some of these other guys are. I was just going to talk about New Japan.
No, I just think for me, I'm not criticizing AEW for anything that they haven't been capable of doing before. Okay. They have been able to integrate veterans and people who might have been a little stale with younger people and more interesting people, right? They've been able to, handle stuff like multiple, like I'm not someone who looked at this storyline with Mox from the beginning. You know this. If you listen to the show, you know this. I was higher on this than anybody else was. A lot of people were at the beginning. I was like, this could be really fucking interesting. Where are they going to go with this? Trevor Dame said this. They've gone nowhere. There were a ton of cool places they could have gone with this. They've gone nowhere. I don't know if this is a similar situation, what happened with the EVP angle, where we got cold feet and we backed off from it. Who the fuck knows? But it's not working. Look yourself in the fucking mirror and tell me that this is working. Tell me that this is good. And I don't want some backstage excuse or some meta thing. Well, they have to do this for so-and-so, and they have a Grand Slam in Australia coming up, so they have to have this person, and they have to do this. No, fuck that shit. Is it good? Because it's not. It's not. It's not good. It's not interesting. It's not compelling. It's fucking ticky-tack bullshit. You can do better than this. Stop listening to some of these people suggesting this shit. Where's Darby? If Darby is your end game, why is he not out there racking up wins and taking on guys? Like, he's got fucking written off and thrown down. You've beaten up every single fucking babyface. Like Trish said, instead of New Japan, where they elevated their babyfaces, they made their babyfaces look cool and awesome, you are making your babyfaces look like fucking dumbasses. You used to not do this. Why are you doing this now?
Yep. And I don't like this constant heat thing. Like, they were so successful at the start of, we finish with that high and we have our baby faces being smart. And all they did in that last cycle was, these guys are fucking dumb and they're not worthy as much as an Adam Copeland.
Right.
Adam Copeland and FTR are going to be more important in saving the soul of AEW. And this whole soul of AEW stuff is such complete, utter bollocks. It's bollocks. And all it does is make them look small. It doesn't help them.
I got to say this because our friend Crudler had a phenomenal quote on the soul of AEW stuff. He said it's late stage capitalism brand identity bullshit as a wrestling angle.
Yes.
Fucking genius.
Oh, that is so spot on. That is so spot on.
Right.
They just need to fix it. And the thing is, it takes away. So you have the C2, which culminated really, really well, and then felt less important than it did the year before because you had lesser talents. You took Jay White and Hangman out of the C2. Because everyone wants to talk about plans. Well, this was not the plan for World's End. This was a change, right? So you take them out, so you lose star power out of that tournament. You don't present that tournament as the biggest thing in your show like you did last year, and consequently, it felt less important. So yes, it had a great finish, but it never felt like it did the previous year. That was because
the lack of promo time also hurt it significantly.
Yeah, we didn't get that feeling that you get, and I also think that reminds me of how like a well-oiled machine like New Japan are with like things like the G1. Like you don't realize how much to do that every single year and to get that response every single year and to sell what the tickets they do every year is a huge achievement when you see this done like this. So yeah, great finish. Thought the finish of the tournament was great, but the way the presentation was hurt by it being underneath this House of Torture fucking bollocks. And you know what? House of Torture did a better job with House of Torture bollocks this week than they did. Right? That Evil Tanahashi match was a better match than a four-way that included Jay White, Orange Cassidy, Adam Page, and John Moxley. Explain that to me.
Well, and then
and then someone said it's a four-way, so they're allowed the interference. It's like, this is WWE 2018 nonsense.
It was awful. It was awful. It was such a bad match.
AEW. You want to talk about your identity and you're saving your identity. This is not AEW as we recognize it. This was not what attracted us to AEW. This is not a good type of heat. There's always talk about, with the Bucks talking about, we toned down our style when people said they had bad matches. No, they said they had boring matches, as in they weren't doing flying maneuvers, they were cutting back their offense, because just like Hangman's doing, like where he doesn't do his moonsault, you do that, you slow things down to get the babyface cheered. This Moxie shit isn't getting the baby faces cheered. All it's doing is making them look like fucking geeks. That's WWE 2018. That was exactly what this company was built to not happen.
You watch, the audience fucking loves Hangman. They have made him look like a fucking idiot and unimportant.
Yeah.
The audience loves Orange Cassidy. They have made him look like a fucking idiot and unimportant. Right? The audience loves fucking Darby. They have made him look like an idiot and unimportant. Right? What am I supposed to get invested in? I don't give a shit about the Rock and Roll Express. I don't fucking care about fucking FTR. And I'm sorry, I get FTR, they haven't even wrestled lately. The one thing you can say about FTR is they're good wrestlers, right? The character work is shitty. Their promos are repetitive. They're really good wrestlers. They're great in the ring. Haven't seen them doing much of that. Tag division's fucking dead. So it's what am I doing here? Right. And that's the part where it's just I don't know, I'm annoyed because I didn't want to complain this much because I'm tired of complaining, but it was hard. I'm tired of complaining. It was hard to watch Wrestle Dynasty and see and feel the excitement for Kenny and feel the excitement for the Bucks, quite frankly, and watch something as emotional as, Tanahashi crying or Naito versus Hiromu. Right. And or even see what was Shota versus Zach, which was kind of a mess, but you kind of were like, well, they put those guys out there. They went for their shot.
They gave him the spot. Yep.
They gave him the spot. They went for it. It didn't work. They put him out there. But then to see guys that AEW has had under contract for fucking years and has not used, and New Japan being like, not a problem. And yes, do I get that it's a little bit easier for them? Do I get that some of the pressure's off, that they have the freedom to be able to do this? Absolutely, I do. But it's hard to watch somebody like Kenny get that kind of presentation and that kind of treatment and realize if he wants to stay in Japan, I get it, right? To look at the Bucks being treated like fucking gods and be like, yeah, I get it. If they want to fucking keep going back to Japan, I get it. Takeshita, to see them roll out the fucking, like you said, roll out the red carpet and be like, why wouldn't he fucking want to go there? He's not getting, she's going to stand behind Don Callis. And I get it. I don't want to hear about, like I said, I'm tired of the meta excuses. They've done this before better. I'd like to see it done better. I get that you can't do a hard reset. I don't want any Vince Russo bullshit, but there's a lot of small changes that they could fucking start with tomorrow. Okay. That would not be that difficult to implement. One of them is a fucking plan. This week-to-week booking bullshit has to stop.
And they say they've got plans going in the summer, but then there's also the ability that you have to pivot when it's not working, and this isn't working.
It's not working.
Then you have to pivot and have your long term, and then you build your second plan, right?
How much cooler? How much cooler would it be right now with Kenny Omega coming back if Swerve was still fucking champion, right at the top of his game? If Hangman, right? If fucking Darby was the champion right now, or Orange Cassidy, Kenny coming in like a fucking killer, how incredible would that feel?
And a lot of those people, you already have that history built in. You have that up there, right? You don't even need to work for it. You don't even have to work for it. It's sat there. I think a lot of this, what this is, right? Rather than, I don't want to complain. And I think we have an apathy now to it in a way. And we're developing that apathy that we did with, our friend Harrison brought this up, and I thought it was a really good point, that I developed that apathy that I had for TNA and for WWE, where you just have that acceptance.
Right.
And I think
this is how it has to be.
Yeah, we bought into the fact that they could be more. And that's the frustration, is we know there could be more because we've seen it. But now they are just a wrestling company. And maybe we should not get so frustrated at the wasting of talent or these sort of things, because it's like we've seen in every other wrestling company in the world. But it's really hard not to. It's really hard not to get. And it's like you get emotionally invested in this stuff when you tell yourself not to, and then you get that disappointment, and that's not a healthy feeling, because that's not disappointment as I want to see someone succeed. It's just disappointment. And I think I used to tell myself, it's just you just need to step back and just go, it's a television show, the television show. It doesn't matter that, tapings are a complete mess of chaos, and it's amazing. They get a show on TV half the time at occurring. It's not none of this stuff should matter. It's just watch the show, and they'll be good, they'll be bad. It's not WCW in 1999, but it's not also even AEW in 2020.
No.
Compete with themselves. And it's the same issues. It'll continue. The Max debut in terms of the look in a smaller building looked really, really good.
Yes.
The graphics
Yes.
right there. You'll get some that maybe feel that it's too polished because the rawness of AEW was something that was attractive, but at least they turned the bloody lights on. These wrestling look like dark rooms, for the last year, have not been great. So that was much better. Visually you have a product, but you then need everything to support that, and that's the bit they've got to fix. So
the smaller buildings are definitely working for them. Like, that was a good choice.
That was a good call. It was a good call. It was the right call. Take the ego out of it and just recognize where you are as a product. And that was, it was the right thing to do. And, you can keep your big houses or try and generate your big houses for the pay-per-views. You're running the Staples Center for Revolution. You're running All In. You're running Forbidden Door somewhere in London, probably O2, but we'll see once WWE complete their dates there. So, do that. And, it's still they can do. But you have to recognize that from a booking side as well, not just a live event side.
And Trish, The Rock is back. So we're going to have some things to talk about regardless. That will be maybe a little fresher than...
Well, so... like when we started the power struggle stuff and everyone was like, you're just targeting something for WWE because you want to say something bad about them because of AEW right now. That was an actual complaint, right? Which is hilarious because, we run for AEW's issues more than probably anybody, but try and do it, with reason. But so there was some hilarious. So we did the interviews last time where we talked about some of the hilarious lines, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're leaking. It could be it could be Roman versus Punk, and all of a sudden it can be Cody versus Cena, and they're competing for the main event of the night, and all these things. And there's multiple articles coming out, but this could all change under the threat of The Rock, because The Rock is the ultimate bad guy. The Rock is the Terminator. The Rock's going to come back and he's going to ruin everything. And it was great, actually. It was getting to the point where it's just like, Rock bad, Triple H good. That was it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, The Rock's back. Oh, yeah. We'll find out, this show goes on in a few hours. It's all changing now. And all your little kind of movement and everything like that doesn't fucking matter. Triple H can go on Sports Illustrated podcast with the guy that did the SNME kind of media run for them.
Yep.
And talk, and he can say, I have a great relationship with Dwayne and all this thing.
Dwayne cares about WWE. He wants to do what's best for WWE.
Yeah, he wants to do what's best, which is a loaded comment. Very similar to what I did last year. But then it's like, okay, so you're still the little brother in this. He comes back, he's going to do whatever he wants. Whatever he wants. I need to get a drink.
I'll take over. No, it was just fascinating. And Justin Barrasso, who had one of the articles that we talked about in our last episode, discussing the threat of The Rock, had another one today where it was like, well, Dwayne's coming back. Is he going to destroy everything? And the other interesting thing about, as you said, Trish pointed out that I don't think we talked about this last time. The Saturday night main event was a disappointing number, and WWE did their typical, let's tweet something out that will counter it. And they went with a relatively new person who then got an interview with Triple H. So shockingly. In the interview with Triple H, apparently Triple H pointed out that he had 6 months, or he had planned the WrestleMania card from October. Those plans had been in place from October, but it would change if The Rock came back. And so, that's where we're at now. I'm fascinated. There's going to be so many more fucking leaks. There's going to be so much more coming out during this WrestleMania season. Their ticket sales are starting to soften a little bit. Not necessarily for everything. Tonight's show is an obviously big one, but there's some other stuff that the holiday tour, they had some soft dates on that holiday tour. So it'll be interesting to see how they play and if the knives start to come out more, if things start to get worse for them. But
they will do, because you've got spots coming in, out, and everywhere, and then there's other things on the outside as well, so public pressures.
Right.
I think we have to mention as well that you've had plenty of news stories around Nick Khan in the last month with Lee Fixing.
Yep.
And the story that came out about ESPN there. And while there's been some denials of thinking that he would not know, it's pretty obvious that he obviously did know when he hired him. And the same with other people that they've hired previously. So there's no, I think Brandon Person wrote a really, really good bit about how the culture has not been changed whatsoever. So that's free as well. So I do say, if you go to WrestleNomics, have a read of that. That's a fantastic summary of all these issues. And then we have the stuff with Skip Bayless just coming out this week.
Yep.
All these people are around Nick Khan. So this is something where culturally he has, there's an acceptance, it feels like. And that's something kind of happening around the outside. And then, you have this power struggle. You're bringing back Hulk Hogan as well. That's not going to make things any better.
Goldberg's talking about what he wants to do for his final match. So he's out there making all sorts of noise.
So it will make money in terms of the destination shows this year, right?
Yes.
So WrestleManias, that sort of thing. And then after that, what do they look at? It's like you are now doing all the things, and this maybe is just for sustaining what you got on top, that didn't get you back hot. You got back hot off people that were fresh, right? Cody was fresh to the company. And you had that kind of thing because he came from AEW. Sami Zayn was fresh in that role and fresh character. That then infused the bloodline. Then you have other people coming up through that you're pushing that you then shows more. So Drew McIntyre can come in and he can step up. You can bring in people from outside like Punk or whatever to do that role. You've got Gunther coming up. You've got, some people. So it built off that. And it built off, this is our generation, right? This is not the Attitude Era. This is not ruthless aggression. This is not 2008 WWE. This is our era. And now we're regressing. And we're regressing very, very quickly. That's going to be a challenge. And that will maybe not show up in the next year as much. Even with the price gouging and everything else. And we're seeing some, we are seeing some stabilization now. That maybe will hold because of these things, but they are never the long-term solution, and it will hurt them. The same all this work shoot bullshit will hurt them.
Yeah.
It's already starting to hurt them. So that is what happens here. So these are risks, and these are the sort of things that maybe you have to do because you're a publicly traded company and you need the next big risk. Same way they're putting the Royal Rumble in Saudi, Because they're a publicly traded company, that guarantee of that money, which will be much more than they can gross in the US, makes that viable. Will there be any real pushback about it? Probably not. But it's a huge move and a bit of momentum in that. But it's that thing of they will just do these things because they constantly need to be progressing upwards. But in the longer term, in the next few years, you're actually undercutting it. And it's the same thing we talked about with AEW. Well, you can stabilize at these numbers. I don't think they are, they're not. But you can stabilize at these numbers like now by using all these old guys on top and getting the recognition from people that may have seen them in WWE. Or you can develop and become something else and potentially reverse the trend with the 18 to 34. Which are you picking? This is that on a much bigger degree. But then with all the politics involved in that, with these huge egos amongst all of them. So it's going to be a mess. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll see what happens with Raw on Netflix tonight. Netflix have really pushed Raw. It's everywhere. It's on the front page. We'll see how that continues. We'll start to get an idea in kind of next few weeks of the figures and how that kind of works out. And we'll work out new normals. The idea of saying like there's no data points and we can't work them out, we'll work out new normals and we can work from there. There will be data points that come available. You won't see it every week. There shouldn't be this weekly kind of focus on some of these numbers because you're trying to still currently interpret what they mean. So if you're looking at every number and going, oh, good, bad, or that, or indifferent, you don't really know yet. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know how this kind of movement and the switch between linear and streaming is going to affect things. But what I do want to say just before we wrap up, and I think we're going to end up doing like, we're moving a lot of stuff to like next time. So I've kept all your questions. We will go through them, but we just had so much to discuss today with this thing. But the key for AEW in particular with Max is not always like the live viewership on Max. It's that they have such loyalty that WBD believe that it will bring loyal viewers to Max because of AEW. That's their level of importance. So it may not be in terms of advertising or anything like that. And that's still important for their role on, TBS, which with Big Bang Theory lowering is, often Dynamite is the most important show on that network that week.
Yep.
But it's more this Max deal, and the reason they got so much money on that side is their loyalty factor in the pay-per-views. If that converts across, then that's huge for that business. That is where their importance lies now. It's not the same. We can't look at this in the same way that we did. And we can't extrapolate, we shouldn't be extrapolating old-style TV numbers into pay-per-view buys either. We need to adapt in the way we think about that now and use the data sets available to spot the trends. So that's all this is about spotting trends. It's not about judging every single thing off one thing. You can do that once you have the trends in place. So, there needs to be new thinking now. It's going to be a new challenge, and we're going to see how everyone presents themselves. We've got 6 hours of WWE mainline television. That's going to be a challenge, and it's a challenge for everyone else because it consumes so much time. We'll see if the benefit of having just Collision and Dynamite helps with them as well. So it's a very changeable time, and I don't think I think it's really difficult to say what the future holds right now from that, and I don't think you can. We've got to sit back, we've got to assess, and we've got to look at everything. It's same with New Japan essentially as well. They're in a different part of their cycle, and we've got to look at that too. So, I think that's a good place to finish up. Do you have anything else?
No, I think we've covered everything, and even some things we didn't want to cover.
Sure, but we had a pretty deep look into New Japan, and thank you for everyone that's answered my responses. People that just spoke so openly to us this week while I've been here. Maybe I should just stay in Japan. It was good.
No, because I would miss you, and I don't want that.
Oh, you come visit New Japan. We can go to Japan. You come for next year for Tanahashi's retirement.
I'll think about it.
Think about it. No, this is a great place to be for wrestling, and the week, with so many shows and everything like that, is just phenomenal. With the yen obviously being down is really helpful for foreign tourists. So it's a great experience, and yeah, there is nothing like a dome. 5 stars in the Tokyo Dome, you bet. There is nothing like being in that dome. So, but yeah, that'll be it. But yeah, it's been nice to be back. I have missed you guys. Let me just do a quick word for Tunnel Talk.
Yes.
Did such an incredible job.
Our girls killed it. Our girls fucking killed it. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to the Young Bucks interview with them, I strongly recommend it. It's fun, it's casual, it's interesting. It covers topics that I think a lot of interviewers wouldn't touch in a really interesting way. It talks about character and gear choices. The Young Bucks get into some really fun details about different creative choices they were thinking about making and chose not to. It's a fun interview. It's worth taking your time. It's been aggregated to hell and back, but I'll tell you, most of the aggregation has been fucking wrong. And it's been kind of fascinating to watch people take things from the Young Bucks decided to have matches that were bad on purpose is possibly the most infuriating headline I've read of 2024, but what the fuck?
Yeah, we were just...
It's not what they fucking said, assholes. Yeah, I did have
that on our bingo card of shit in aggregation. I think the only ones we got left is Matt is a contrarian, Nick and pay-per-view days, and what was the other one? Oh, Slick Nick. Nick. Any of you headline writers, I don't know, No DQ, or the other people that kind of keep an eye on me. Like, you need to. I need a Slick Nick. Nick doesn't like to be slippery headline, please. We're free blocks off our bingo card of stupid headlines that we worked out. Yes. There needs to be a Slick one. But no, look.
Trish and I had early access to this interview, and we were very lucky. And I popped her by coming up with a list of aggregation headlines that I assumed would come out, and many of them came true, which is fucking disturbing. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, we were surprised. Like when we got the Orange Cassidy one, we were like, yeah. But no, look, they didn't ask for this. I'll say, yeah, we can say that. This was put to them. And that can be a really scary thing. And it's not something that they naturally do. But, having seen like the prep work that they put in, seeing how they did it to the point where they made them so comfortable that you got so much good to go out of that there. Yep. And, the way that everything was kind of, we want to say thanks to everybody on the network, to Rich, to Jeremy, to everyone, to Amy that edited for us, to everybody that kind of took a part in this as well, that just kind of delivered it. I think it was a real step forward for the network, and headline, by Tunnel Talk. Doing the first Young Bucks interview outside of, Swerve Strickland and AEW talent since All Out. It's an incredible get. It would not have happened if it had been anybody else. Yeah. It happened because it's Tunnel Talk, and they are so good at what they do. So, fair play to them. We loved it. We had great fun with it. We were lucky. Us and Rich got the bit before, and we were just, it was so hard to then not say anything. But yeah, they smashed it, and it's a proof that you can do things differently and get great results. So
yeah, it doesn't need to be the same fucking 5 white guys in a room talking about how great Will Ospreay is. No. Like, do something different. Like, try something new. So
yeah. Oh, and they got their shirts off. They
got the shirts off. Shirts off for Tunnel Talk. Nips out for Tunnel Talk. Thank you, Slick Nick. Thank you.
And Matt, yeah, Matt got it. Matt was like,
obviously.
I was like, I need to text Leah so quick. Yeah, it was like, yeah. So that was tremendous work, and I think we need to recognise that because I don't think they've actually had enough recognition. And I want to say thank you as well to Garrett Gonzalez for giving them a shout on War after we kind of caused some hell about them not being recognised in the Observer because it's important. You know, you do this work, you put that work in, you should be, and the fact that it's new voices doing it is even more important. You know, we have to change certain things in that culture. Well, that's enough.
Pontificating,
talk about this thing.
Fluffing our girls, but we can't help it.
They did such an awesome. It was so funny. I was listening to it again in the airport the other day, and it was just in stitches. Especially when Nick just decides, "Fuck it, I'll say what I want." It's just like, oh god. But yeah, no, fantastic job. I know it's not something they want to do in the future, but I'm like, hey, if you get the opportunity, kill it because it's so refreshing to see something different and not hit the same fucking five lines. So that has been it. This has been a very New Japan orientated version of the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. We are produced by the wonderful Leah of the aforementioned Tunnel Talk, who does a smashing job of making me sound half reasonable, even at 6 a.m. on a Japanese morning. So bad. You can find Tunnel Talk and all our great podcasts over at the Social Suplex Network, the network that just likes to cause a little bit of trouble here and there, but really has kind of progressed in the last year. You can find us over at www.socialsuplex.com. You can also find our Discord there, which you can join and interact with all the hosts of all these podcasts. You can also find us ourselves on Twitter and Blue Sky. We're at Trish and Sarah on Twitter. Trish and Sarah Pod on Blue Sky. Have we fixed the Blue Sky yet? Is it dead?
Well, I haven't fixed it, but I know how to fix it, so I have to fix it.
Okay, cool. But you can also find us
I'm going to fix it by tomorrow, so I will tweet the podcast announcement tomorrow on Blue Sky, or tweet whatever the fuck we're doing over there. But yes, I'm on it, Trish.
I'm even saying anything to you about like fix this technical thing when it took me 10 minutes to get my headphones to work before we started. Oh my god. You can also support the network and ourselves by going to Josh Tees? I don't know. Maybe our friend Josh could make us a tee. He's very cool at that stuff. Josh, we're going to bug you for stuff. www.chop-tees.com/Trish and Sarah and all the rest of our great podcasts. If you change that to -social suplex. You can also contact us by email, trishandsarahpod@gmail.com, trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. I have saved all your questions. We do keep them. We will get back to them. We just had so much to discuss. Everything just blew up in like 24 hours in Japan. So I do apologize for that. Back in a couple of weeks, hopefully things are a bit more calm and we can get into stuff. We'll have the Raw Netflix to get through and how that's shaping up, and plenty of other stuff as well, and anything else that we come up with while I'm here for a bit longer. So thank you very much for listening and being back with us. Hope you enjoyed the Christmas episode. Hope you never think of Blackpool the same way again. And until next time, I've been Trish.
I've been Sarah.
And this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for listening.
Some things you wouldn't mind being stuck with, like a huge inheritance. But a phone that has to be plugged in just right so it charges is not one of those things. Switch to Verizon and we'll pay off your old phone up to $800 via prepaid MasterCard for a new one on us. Just trade in any phone from our top brands with select unlimited plans. $829.99 purchase with new smartphone line on select unlimited plans. Minimum $90 per month with autopay plus taxes and fees for 36 months required. Less $830 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Trade-in terms apply. Payoff phone requires smartphone purchase and port in with new smartphone line on select plan. Must provide most recent bill showing payoff amount of eligible phone. Additional terms apply.